will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we start out with public audience. I have the list of people who have signed in here. They're getting more chairs for people, in case you wanna sit down, Dave. And the first person that I have is Jessica Parisi.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Parisi at 102 North Saddle Ridge. I am a member of the Board of Education, but I'm here today on my own behalf and not as a member of the board. I stand here as a taxpayer, and as a taxpayer, I would like to voice my support for the proposed purchase of 2 Farms Village Road to be used for Simsbury schools to house a special education program for many students currently attending out-of-district programs. The acquisition is a strategic, fiscally responsible, spend-to-save measure to help mitigate the rising costs of out-of-district special education services. The scenario we're facing as a town with respect to special education costs is not a good one. We have a steady number of students with significant special needs for whom we're currently not able to service them in district. We therefore must obtain state mandated services out of our district at an exceedingly high and rising cost and at distances that necessitate our students spend more time being transported out of their community. At the same time, the state continues to dramatically reduce the amount it refunds the district to cover the costs of 4.5 times our average per pupil expenditure to educate these students. Purchasing this property will allow the district to create an in-district program to meet the needs of these students, provides an excellent opportunity to help reduce the cost of educating them, allows us to create some stability in budgeting for these students, and importantly, brings our kids home to be educated in their community. This is a no-brainer, win-win solution. To be clear, this is not an issue facing Simsbury alone. It's an issue impacting districts across the state and country. It's also one where districts have very limited ability to control costs. Simsbury, however, is poised to be a leader among districts by strategically creating a program to provide cost containment and stability to its budget, with one that is projected to be self-sustaining while providing high-quality services that meet the needs of our students and those in the surrounding community. The acquisition of this building is critical to the feasibility of this program. This is not an issue that's going away, but is one where if we act early and responsibly, we can contain the financial burden that will ultimately land on the shoulders of Simsbury taxpayers. I urge the Board of Selectmen to approve the purchase of this building at this meeting so that the necessary work can be done to get our students back into their home district and into the facility as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person, it's 2 people. I have William and Colleen Smith. It says Aquarian rep, but we have a presentation from Aquarian, so I don't know who they
I'm
are.
here for that part. I'm William Smith. I'm here for that part of the
Oh, okay, so we'll
presentation.
call you when we do the presentations. Thank you. I will, okay. I can't, Chris, who's Chris?
I'm just here to observe.
Okay, so you just signed up? Okay,
No, I thought it was just a sign.
okay. And what you, Diane, you know you haven't signed up, I'm going to.
I haven't signed up, so I'll wait until you
Yeah,
finish your
I'm
list.
going through the list. The next person I have is Diane Nash. And again, 5 minutes and we will cut you off, so everybody's pretty aware.
And I'll read to make sure I'm Diane Nash, 5 Berrywood, Simsbury. It makes no sense for me to be here to speak at public audience tonight. At past meetings, I've used the 5 minutes to direct a revisit to tape prior meetings and testimony given. I've used 5 minutes to cite tape meetings and other boards that rendered their opinions. Yet tonight I receive a communication from the town manager that reshapes the essence of testimony and contradicts messages that were given at these tape meetings. I specifically refer to the sale proposed sale of a vacant non-conforming 0.36 parcel of town land. Ignoring first, then agreeing, now arguing that it is not open space, despite it being on every town map. In the correspondence and request for approval is the recasting of facts. There's new and revised rationale and recommendation for the sale and these properties. Bundled in the communication is a request for adoption of a new procedure to sell other parcels without homeowner. When the parcel and the public were clear, they do not want these parcels sold. It makes no sense to me here to speak because you're not listening. Except the public is listening. The public is hearing. So I speak to them and for them tonight. And perhaps when enough of them listening, maybe town management will start listening too. And I hope you do too. So I highlight a few specific things on the tape because obviously nobody's watching the tapes. Specifically, we were told this is a test case. This is one of 7 or 8 properties that town management is discussing. All adjacent property owners have been informed. The goal is to make the sale, this is on tape. The goal is to make sale of these properties more efficient. And the town manager may go through open space, but does not want to create a precedent. So much now of what we're told is very contradictory to the what and why. So where does the truth lie? If this one homeowner desiring control of this parcel, a simple life use agreement could be made. Doesn't transfer with the deed if he sells it. It doesn't encumber the property later if we put restrictions on it. It is simple and most important, we are not using town resources on something so incidental when we've got a huge piece of property there in the parking lot that we should be negotiating for affordable housing and space behind Fitzgerald's and that plaza. So by restricting the deed, there will be no need. When we say, now we're going to investigate all properties
20
that are not deed
seconds,
restricted.
Diane.
So if we do that, we use it a lot of time to look at every property. So thank you.
Okay, Pat Weisbrod.
Good evening, Pat Weisbrick, 3 Lenora Drive. I'm sorry that my remarks are going to be off the cuff. I've been out of town for 3 months and I came back to this and I was really surprised. One of the first surprises is trying to get up to speed about this. I found this memorandum on page 96 to 99 of 218 pages that go with this meeting. How on earth can anybody keep up with this? I certainly recommend that each individual item has a separate file because to go through 218 pages is beyond comprehension. Second of all, on the first page, it says that the D'Onofrio family has resided in their property since 1999. If that's the case, I would have to ask the assessor's office why on the property card he has owned the property since 2018. That it was Anthony and Constance Riano owned it from 1999. So there's that issue. This lengthy memorandum from Mr. Nelson talks about a lot of different things. Obviously, there is a lot of confusion, which I am not up to speed with, on what open space is and what we can do with it. That concerns me, and I think that it really needs to be defined before open space, we start selling off open space. And then another thing on the property card, the house lot for 215 Firetown Road. There are two different figures on this. It's one on appraised value, it says total land value $90,300. And then state item codes, which I am not up to speed with, forgive me for my ignorance. But it says residential land 34 acres at 63. One way or the other, an offer of $15,000 is either four times what not four times, is 1/4 of what the value is, or 1/6. So at the end of this lengthy memorandum, Mr. Nelson says, I respectfully recommend the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed sale of this parcel. Now, Mr. Nelson, you are given a stewardship as manager of this town property, of the property in this town, and to sell a piece of property at 1/4 to 1/6 its value, I don't feel is very good stewardship. So in closing, I would recommend that this go back to the drawing board. And when you really know what's going on and can have a consistent proposal, trust me, for $15,000 for a third acre, if I could find an acre lot for $45,000 in this town, I'd buy it and build my own house. So this whole thing should come apart right here. And please, I respectfully ask that you all go back to the drawing board and really get the facts and assess them in a logical way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joan, I guess you're speaking.
Go Joan.
Sorry, Joan.
Joan Cove, 26 Whitcomb Drive. On January 8th, 2025, there was a freedom of information session at the library where the information officer stated the requirements for convening a meeting to executive session. At the Board of Selectmen meeting, December 9th, 2024, First Selectman Wendy Massachusetts stated that the Board of Selectmen will be going into executive session. The entire board voted and they entered executive session. First Selectman Wendy Massachusetts violated the Freedom of Information Act with the omission of the names of the people and others entering executive session and the reason for entering executive session. First Selectman Wendy Massachusetts was elected as First Selectman in 2021 and is serving presently. During her tenure, she chaired the Board of Selectmen meetings with many executive sessions on the agenda. However, on December 9, 2024, Board of Selectmen meeting, she noted that the board was going to executive session without stating the persons invited into the session and the reason for the session, a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. All the members of the Board of Selectmen were sleeping at the switch by not questioning the violation, but voted to go into executive session. Now, I'm getting into the purchase of the property. The town wants to purchase 2 Farms Village Road for $626,000 with 4,752 square feet of space. According to the tax department, 4 Farms Village Road pays $14,817.95
for real estate taxes, and there's also additional property taxes. An office building, 545 Hop Meadow Street, was recently sold for $575,000 with 10,748 square feet of space. The purchase and use of the building appears to be a field of dreams that is costly and only is used for containment of special education students out of the schools into a separate building. The spend to save theory is a fallacy. There have been many projects that have been purchased with the people's taxes that have gone bankrupt. It appears that the Board of Education created the numbers for the development of the project by working the numbers to justify the purchase. With this acquisition, the taxpayers are being asked to pay for a theory developed by the Board of Education with unlimited future costs. This burden of increased taxation is not a project for cost containment, but an open checkbook funded by the taxpayers. Town Manager Mark Nelson and Superintendent Matt Curtis submitted these findings. Quote, "The backdrop against which our work is progressing is a drop in our total grand list valuation of taxable property of more than $1.6 million, mainly resulting from state mandated changes to valuation methods for motor vehicles. Exasperating this reality is the fact that last year's budget cycle faced only 0.06% grand list growth, requiring a mill rate increase of 4.67%. Our top priority in the current budget cycle is to mitigate mill rate impact for our taxpayers," end quote. The taxpayers should not be expected to subsidize a failed project with unknowing longevity costs. Town managers and superintendents of schools should not keep asking the taxpayers for more money on speculation of projects, instead of using their personal capital to lobby the state to remove all unfunded mandates. With mental health remediation is a serious issue and should be a number one priority. All hospitals should be expanded with professionals that can service the mental health issues with outpatient patients through long-term care. The special education services in the school are developed for containment, not long-term care. The teachers and other services cannot adequately provide a safe environment for students or themselves. Throwing money at a failed system will only require the taxpayers to fund special education at the expense of the health and safety of the community. The only way to fix the system of funding mental health is for the taxpayers to revolt against the government and vote no on all submitted budgets. The first step of containment is to vote no on the purchase of 2 Farms Village Road submitted by Town Manager Mark Nelson and Superintendent Matt Curtis. Recently, I'm finished with that story. Recently, the Old Saybrook Police Department had a consultant review the management of the police department and address the reason for officers leaving the department due to a toxic work environment. The Simsbury Police Department recently contracted with Certus to review the police department and give recommendations to Chief Bolter. Has Chief Bolter implemented any of these recommendations? There are underlying issues with the police officers voting no confidence in Chief Bolter in the past due to a toxic work environment.
Thank you, Joan.
All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Pat and Twitter Joan Co. I came right under the wire.
You have to go to the
Thank you.
CERTA study. Do I have anyone else here for public audience? Lori Boyko?
Something.
Good job, Joan. I am Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road. I don't know why I even bother to come to these meetings. For the most part, the decisions are all made long before we get in this room, and unless someone is part of a special interest group or 501c3, their voice makes no difference at all. Little people who are just citizens get their measly 5 minutes, while those in the inner circle get a full-on presentation with plenty of leeway. Business owners get priority over residents, wealthy get their priorities and privileges paid for by peasants, town boards and commissions bend over backwards to create affordable housing for people who don't live in town but want to, while jacking up taxes through the roof for people who have lived here for decades. Everything is asked backwards, and people either don't see it, don't want to acknowledge it, or are afraid to say it. We spend endless money on studies, from $98,000 for a charrette, a splash pad, downtown parking study, $36,000 on a study for the PAC, $10,000 for a library program consultant, $14,000 for a Great Blue Town Satisfaction Survey 400 people took to tell us 97% of the people in town are happy with the town. $4,000 at $100 an hour for Lee Erdman to do a first selectman efficiency study, and the library wants to hire a consultant for a furniture study. Almost all for things we never end up doing. But now, when we're faced with spending millions of dollars on a new building and massive renovation for a grand total of only 20 to 25 students, some of whom may or may not come from out of district, or maybe just be moved over from pathways at the high school, every board lines up to rubber stamp their approval without a study in sight. The numbers are fuzzy and will be over budget. Who the students are is unclear and constantly changing, and there is zero chance anyone in the private sector would ever get anything like this approved with this kind of a proposal that isn't fully developed and vetted. What is before you is shooting from the hip at best, and it's way overpaying for a commercial property in a declining commercial market. But because it is the public money, you'll just hand it over because the unproven catchphrase spend to save is being used, and the taxpayers will just blindly have to ante up. Those who can't afford it will either have to sell their house and move, or move into the newly created town affordable housing. You will own nothing and you will like it. When is everyone going to figure out that the emperor has no clothes?
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Do you have anyone else here? Susan?
Good evening, Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. I've also been out of the loop. My dad's critically ill, so I don't know about anything that's on the agenda, the 200 pages, what Diane talked about. But I came here tonight to make 3 points. At the last meeting, which was on November 18th, there was a public hearing about the open space sale, and then there was public comments. During public comments, I made 7 very specific, clear points about a bunch of things I won't reiterate. One of those points was that people are always calling me to find out when is the meeting, when is the public hearing? And that day I had done a bunch of Googling to try and find it. I couldn't find anything. And I have come to the Board of Selectmen September 2023, I think. It was like 18 months I've been making this point. That people don't know how to find information, where to send comments, what's going on. On that day, when I looked up and tried to Google, I realized it's impossible. There is no way. I challenge you to go home tonight and try and find out. We have a zoning meeting coming up. Look up public hearing, zoning committee, Simsbury, Connecticut. No way. Charter revision committee, no information. The open space land sale, no information. There is no way for the public to get any information. And then when I came here to a meeting and said in public, we can't get any information, it's not even reflected in the minutes. Nothing I said is in the minutes. And people saw me that night and they said they had never seen me so upset. Okay. But every single person in the hallway or called me, they said, thank you so much for saying that. Do you know how many times I've been trying to tell the town, we can't find any information. We need to stop doing anything until the public is able to get information. This is like, is it incompetence or you just don't want people to know what's going on? I mean, it's starting to get really scary. So that's one point. The open space land sale, the whole process has just been characterized by a whole bunch of, questionable things. I'm just gonna say that. I've made a lot of comments about that before. And I wanna reiterate again that the Grange is willing to mow the land. We could do a farm lease. Just keep it how it is, just mow it, and it'd still be an asset that the town owns. If we wanna put a little house on it on the future, whatever. We should not be giving public land at a fraction of what it's worth to a private individual. Period, end of story. The last reason why I'm here is, now I'll turn to the good part of my comments. I was just elected president of Simsbury Grange, and I'm delighted to announce that we have 2 new series this year, Music Mondays and Film Fridays. Our first Music Mondays, there'll be phenomenal musicians, is on February 3rd. They're gonna be the first Mondays of the month. And Film Fridays are starting with the Beaver Pond Wildlife Series, which was a huge hit before, and that will start in April, and that will be the first Friday of the month. So, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else here for public audience? Anyone else, public audience? Okay, now we can get into the 4 presentations that we have tonight. So we have 4 presentations. I am asking each presenter to keep it 15 minutes or less. Because we're looking at an hour for the presentations just to start off the meeting. The first presentation we have, this was generated as an ask because of a letter that went out to many residents from Aquarian regarding water testing and things like that. So we have George Logan and we have William Smith. I knew that. Here to talk. Hi, George.
Yes.
So while George is hooking up, so of course George is with our public relations outfit based out of Lindley Street. I'm William Smith. I'm the operations manager for the Simsbury water system, so all of the Aquarian employees that run around doing all the different things, maintaining the distribution system, operating and maintaining the water supply system, the treatment plants, they work for me.
And I'm glad to be here. I've been with, is there like a mic, is there online folks online as well? Oh, it's all around, okay.
Yeah.
And I've been with Aquarian Water Company since
Thank you.
1992. Started off as an engineer. Working my way up to director of engineering, you're welcome. And now I'm one of the executive problem solvers. All right, so here today, we're gonna chat about our service line inventory program. We're gonna talk a little bit about the federal lead and copper rule. It's a regulation that not just Aquarion, but water companies throughout the country have to abide by. We're gonna talk about our service line inventory and replacement program. There's 2 sides to a customer's water service line, the portion that's owned by the customer and the portion that's owned by Aquarion. I'm gonna get into a little bit of our service line inventory map that's online, and for you folks that are online, you can go to aquarianwater.com/lead, and that'll get you to that site. We have a service line inventory survey that we're asking customers to fill out. And then we're also gonna just chat a little bit about Aquarion in terms of the ongoing investment in infrastructure that we're doing in town. So first of all, I wanna start off by saying Aquarion water is safe to drink. There is no lead, yes, it's safe to drink, oh, that was clap, sorry. There's no lead in the water. Not in our aquifer, there's no lead in the distribution system. Lead service lines were commonly used in older cities and towns, right? So there was a time where, believe it or not, folks were using lead material for their service lines, right? It's malleable, it lasts a long time. So there are some folks out there that may have lead service lines, but we found that numbers to be very small. The main issue is that the federal government wants us to do an inventory on every service line. Again, not just the service connection, the portion of the service line owned by the water company, but also the portion that's owned by the property owner. So there are many instances where the material type is unknown. Unknown does not mean necessarily that it's lead. So our goal is to find out for every property, what is the material type for the customer side of the water service line and the water company side. So that's our challenge. So for those instances where there may be lead service lines out there that we don't know of, There are ways utilizing various treatment techniques to kind of phosphate in the water that helps line the service line, so that even if the service line is of a lead material, as long as you don't break it or crack it or open it, it puts this coating on it, and none of the lead leaches into the into the water, in theory. But obviously, the safest way would be to try to find any lead service lines that are out there, and then remove them, replace them. So let me get into a little bit on the lead and copper rule, also known as the LCR, promulgated way back in 1991. Primary source of lead and copper, customer service lines, as I mentioned, both company-owned side and the customer-owned side. Plumbing, right? Interior, your plumbing inside your home. Fixtures could potentially have lead components. Again, I'm gonna stress, Aquarion's water is safe to drink. There's no lead in the water. There's no lead in the distribution system. So a federal law, a federal rule called the Lead and Copper Rule revisions. So LCRR. We had the Lead and Copper Rule, and then they made revisions to it that is now requiring all public systems across the country to send letters to customers with the material of their service line. The letters are not about the quality of the water. Now here's the issue. It's the government, no offense, particularly the federal government in this case, the federal government. And the language in those letters were dictated by the federal government. And they were required by the EPA, the federal level, and the Connecticut Department of Health. So Aquarion Water Company, other water companies had very little wiggle room in terms of the wording of the letter. So that letter went out to all our customers, and it's caused a lot of angst for a number of folks. So Aquarion conducts compliance sampling in each public water system as required by the Connecticut DPH. Some cases every 6 months, some cases every year, some cases every 3 years. I think we're in about approximately a 1 year basis here. Approximately 1,500 samples per year are collected by Aquarion customers throughout our system from their own kitchen faucets to ensure that the water is safe. All 73 of Aquarion's public water systems are in compliance for lead. We don't have any systems that are not in compliance for lead. So here's a visual here. You can see the home, and it shows the coming out of the home. If you look to the left there, it shows the a water meter. Sometimes the water meter is located inside the home. Sometimes the water meter is located outside in a meter pit. And Will, give me my timer here. I want to make sure I stay within the 15 minutes. So when the meter's inside the home, it could be in the garage, it could be in the basement. Sometimes it's out in the pit. And you see the sort of red line there in the grass there. There's a valve. We call it the curb valve. So everything from that curb valve back to the home is the property owner owns that portion of the line, is responsible for that portion of the line. Everything from that curb box, we call the service connection, to the pipe in the street is owned by the water company. And it's Aquarion's responsibility. So now I'm going to just get into a little bit in terms of the survey. So where do you go to do the survey? You got the letter, you want to do the survey. I'm going to go rapid fire, just to kind of take away some of the mystery of it. You go to our website, aquarionwater.com/lead, and you'll see this. You go over to the left and where it says lead service line inventory, you tap on view map, you input your address. Hopefully no one knows this person that lives on 33 Seminary Road, but I use it as an absolute random example. You type in that address. I had to use somebody's address. I should have used my brother's address, actually. He was across from the high school here in Simsbury. I should have done that. And you see, look at all those question marks. That doesn't represent lead service lines. That means we don't know what the customer has on their side. Now, in many of those cases, we know we have on the Aquarion side, the service connection, but we can't go by that. We have to have proof, definitive proof of what that material type is, because customers could change their service lines over time. It's possible. So this is what we're trying to do here. And you see the green checks. Once you complete the survey and your properties could deemed to be no lead, you'll get the green check mark at your property there. And if you do have lead, you'll get a little red circle there. As you can see in this area of the Simsbury, there are no lead lines. So if we were to find a lead line, we're going to tackle that immediately, right? So hopefully no one will have a lead service line, but we really won't know until we check. So here's the survey, just really quickly. It's gonna ask you to complete a form, so you tap, you go on here, are you a homeowner, are you a renter, give me your first name, give me your last name, the actual address of the property, your phone number, email, apparently is optional. And then we're gonna ask you, what pipe material have you observed? That's where the challenge comes in, right? What do you mean, what I observed? Now you're asking me to tell you what the material type of my service line is? That is what we're trying to do, right? However, if you run into some difficulties, there is also a plan B for that as well. We're here to help. But we're trying to get through this as efficiently as possible. So there's the number of different types. I'm gonna get into each one now. So we're asking folks to take a photograph and then just upload those photographs through the website to help us determine. So one, I'm gonna get into for you. So lead, zooming in here. If you have a lead service line, you go in your basement, you go in your garage, you take a look at where your meter is. If it's lead, the pipe's gonna be sort of gray or silver. You can do a scratch test, if it's just shiny and silver, soft, and if it scratches easily, good chance that it's lead. A magnet won't stick to the lead pipe. And you'll see these little bulbs, I don't know if you can see there, it kind of widens at the base a little bit. So those are some signs there that it might be lead. But again, of course, obviously, and hopefully this presentation, see if we're taking pictures here, we're gonna have this presentation available to you as part of this meeting materials. We'll give that to you in the PDF. Galvanized steel is gray or silver. There are many service lines that are of galvanized steel. And on this one, a magnet will stick. So if you have a service line and between the meter and the part going into the wall, magnet sticks, it's probably galvanized steel. Copper, right? Looks like a penny. You do the scratch test, if it's the same color as a shiny penny, most likely have copper. Many copper service lines out there. Copper will be okay. And then there's also brass. And brass can have a green, and so sure have green corrosion spots. You do the scratch test there, gold color, but brass magnet won't stick on brass either. And it has threaded connections. And then there's plastic. The service lines are plastic. And obviously, you guys know the plastic could be blue or red or white, and obviously very smooth and malleable. So here we're asking for the pictures. When you're taking the picture, we want the picture in the view so that the actual valve, as you can see, is sticking out. We don't want the valve in the same, sort of plane as the picture, right? We want it on the side so we can actually tell the material type. And we also want to see where the service line goes either into the wall, right, out to the street, or if it goes down into the floor, we want to see that portion of it as well. So that's what we're asking you to do. This is just a close-up of that. Another close-up. Right, and now I'm gonna bring Will over and we're gonna talk about some of the capital. We're gonna do it from there, Will,
You're
or?
doing really well. We're
Good.
10 minutes in and
All
I'm
right.
gonna be in less than 5.
There you go.
Alright, so here we go. So we've been making regular improvements to the Simsbury distribution system, to the treatment systems. And so the newest one that will be coming online later this year, 2025, is a brand new pump station up by Hoskins Road, Clifton Drive area. We've got a big tank, the biggest tank. It's like about a 3 million gallon tank up there that is the main storage for the water for Simsbury. So we're putting a brand new pump station in there. It'll be finished later this year, and when that's done, it'll make 2 other pump stations shown there in the red circles. Okay, one to the north and one to the south of the tank that you see there. Those will be obsolete now. We'll be able to take those offline and save some operating costs in having 1 pump station instead of 2 or 3. So that's coming up, be finished this year. We did a lot of pipeline work this past summer down around Redstone Drive. We've got more 2025 right there in white in the middle of the screen, more pipeline work scheduled for new pipes in the ground to replace old aging infrastructure. You can see the roads listed there: Cornfield Road, Branch Brook, High Hill, Valley View, Bob White Way. And the other thing, and that's part of the capital plan, but even on the other side of the house, as far as service lines, dovetailing into what George has been talking about, this past fall, I had a service line replacement project where I came in before the town repaved the road on Timber Ridge and Old Everett's Lane, right? Elliott, Timber Ridge and Elliott. Before they paved the road for brand new paving, I came in and we replaced the Aquarian side of the service line so that I won't get breaks. It was almost all plastic lines that's deteriorating, so I won't get breaks. It's brand new service lines on the Aquarian side, brand new paving. I shouldn't have to go back there for a good long while. And we're gonna do another such project where we replace all of the service lines we did Seminary Road also, and I'm gonna do another one this year too, coming up here in the next couple of months. So we're actively tackling old infrastructure in Simsbury to make sure that we keep the water flowing quite well. All right, there you go.
All right, and that's it, and I don't know if you get questions, but the questions, yes?
With the service line inventory map, is this like private information though? Like if you had lead in your water, would you want it to be displayed, like if you're selling your house purchases?
Right, well, so far now, we haven't found any that have lead, right? And if we do find, we're gonna tackle it right away, so chances are it would not be on that map, we'll tackle it right away and get rid of it.
Yeah, so two things about that. Number one, this is an inventory map about where we find lead in the service lines. That has
I know with the house, okay.
nothing necessarily to do with lead in the water.
Right.
Number one. Number two, to your point very specifically, sir, is if a homeowner knows that they have lead fixtures or lead pipes in their home, they are required to disclose that as part of the sale process.
You don't wanna test it, so that's the only thing you can.
Well, yeah, but and to that, right.
But if I can, there's one more thing, because these guys are covering the water that you're that's coming from Aquarian, but we also have a lot of people in town that have private wells.
Yes.
I called Farmington Valley Health District, they have no known issues of lead in any of the groundwater here in Simsbury. And that's also confirmed by the fact that they have drinking water wells that Aquarian operates that are constantly tested. We have not seen that showing up here.
And these letters are gonna go out every year, right? So if you don't complete the survey, you're gonna get the letter again next year. Don't complete it next year, you're gonna get it the following year. We have, I think, about 12 or 13 years to get this completely
Well, I mean, we've got 12 or 13 years according to the rules to replace
Place it.
all of the found lead service lines. We have fewer years than that to identify the material for every service line in every town.
I have a quick question. So people who have a well, I didn't get the letter. I'm not gonna get the letter, it sounds like,
Correct.
because it's just my property, whatever, from my whatever.
That is correct.
And then the other thing is, if people do find lead and do the survey, if it's on their side, which it sounds like it would be, it's up to them to pay to fix this problem? To replace the line?
Technically, yes. But there are some resources available, mainly for economically distressed folks, as well. And the state is trying to come up with more resources and funding to help homeowners to replace the services.
So if somebody does a survey and they identify as lead, you said you'll jump right on them, would you give them resources?
We're gonna work with
Okay.
them yes, right, there are limited resources available, so the early birds will certainly get to those resources sooner than later. There are some limited funds available now. If we do find one, we're gonna jump on and utilize those right away. And we're not finding, throughout our service areas, a lot.
I have the list of what we have found so far of known lead service lines for my area up here, which includes Plainville and Simsbury. I've only got five residents in both of those towns that have known lead line components out of the thousands of connections we have. But as you saw from the slide, we've got a lot of unknowns out there still. And so what we have to do is we have to turn those unknowns into knowns.
That's right.
We do the survey, will we stop getting the letter?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
So George, and this is not for any alarm, but when the letter came out,
Yes.
my neighbors came to me and said, "Oh, what's going on here?" And we had someone test the water random spots.
Yeah.
And of those random spots, about 20% came in above the EPA level for lead. So is there like some mitigation as far as, even to, will you help us if someone wants to get their water tested? Is there anything from Aquarian to help with the cost of testing our water if they don't feel comfortable?
You're talking private wells?
No, this is Aquarian piped to the house, but they, from inside their house, was above the EPA level.
And that potential is there again
Okay,
because of the
so-
plan, but yeah.
So I would say a couple of things to that. So number one, you said they kind of went around and did some random testing. So I would ask, who did the testing?
That's right. That's
So
exactly.
number one, because Aquarian does not recommend that you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get a do-it-yourself water test kit and send it in. We recommend using a state certified lab, okay, to make sure that you can count on the results. And God knows where those mail-in tests are going. And let's all, I'm not saying this is true, but there is sometimes a financial incentive to send people tests that say a certain thing. That's why we say go to a
Yes.
state certified
So
lab.
this was with the state certified lab. The randomness is it was a fantasy football league. So there's a text message that went back and forth, so people live all over and they are all concerned, and so everyone got a test kit, sent it in, about out of 20, 5 of them came back as over.
What did they do with that information?
Yeah.
Did they contact the aquarium? Any of them?
So I don't know, cause I don't personally, cause it's a
Yes.
private
I'm putting you on the spot,
private
but it's right.
situation,
Yes,
so
yes,
everyone's
yes.
got their private situations, it's not on me to report it, so
Yes.
I just know the count. So they're working through mitigation steps,
Okay.
but
Well, I can tell you that if you contact Aquarian with a what you suspect is a lead test level over the action level, we have a water quality department that takes all of those cases and catalogs them individually, and they work through each individual case.
Okay.
And they will come out and they will do
Absolutely.
testing to verify the result. Sometimes multiple times if necessary. And if we find that there actually is a lead problem at a residence, then our water quality department works with the residents to figure out what the source is and to get rid of it.
is there a cost to that?
For our services for testing, when we find a hit, no, typically not.
It's good information.
Yeah, thank you. And is this something that's posted somewhere? It's on your website, the information that you
Yeah.
just presented, so
I'll
people can.
I'll send you the PDF and you feel free to post it
Okay,
on
we can
the
post
website.
it somewhere online
Yes, sir.
for anybody who has questions, and there's contact information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we
Um,
could share the video as well from Simsbury TV, maybe they could take a clip of it or the town as well of the presentation.
Oh, isn't the presentation? Beginning of the meeting, not the whole meeting.
Yeah, well, we went through public comment.
Oh, I'm saying just,
Yeah,
okay,
so maybe we
gotcha.
could work with getting a clip and posting just that on the website.
Oh, good idea. Got it.
I didn't realize that you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item we have is the Simsbury Soccer Club. I think Ben Berger's here. And we're, again, gonna try to stick to the 15-minute
Thanks, sir.
thing. We're just looking to hear from you guys.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for having me. My name is Ben Berger. I'm here in my capacity as the president of the Simsbury Soccer Club. Okay. I've lived in the town for 20 years, and in that time I've become a part of the Simsbury soccer community and have been on the board for that 20 years. And I'm really pleased to be joined by other members of the board who are here, but also in looking out at the folks here, not just people who are here because they're on the board, but people who are just community members for other reasons who have a connection to the soccer club, and it's gratifying to see that. And that makes sense because the fact is, of the K-8 population in the town, about 30% of our students are involved in the Simsbury Soccer Club. It's an enormous percentage, and we're probably the biggest organization in the community, representing an incredible number of families, 140 volunteers who are our coaches, and 16 members of our volunteer board, and we're really proud of that. We're especially proud, and I'm gonna kind of blow through this because I know we've got a stacked docket tonight, of the fact that this is our 50th anniversary. The club was formed in 1975 in September, and we are now in our 50th year, and we're really excited about that and some of the things that we're planning as an organization. I'm here to talk about where the club is now, a little bit of background, talk about where our facilities are and then what we're hoping to do for the future. So I appreciate your patience and the opportunity and the forum to do that. There you go. That's basically the three parts that I'm talking about, a little background, where we are and where we hope to go and why we're excited about that. We are a 501c3. We are a member of the Connecticut Junior Soccer Association, which is our state body that reports up to the United States Soccer Federation. So everything that we do is filtered through multiple levels and tiers of authority, going all the way up to the National Federation, to the teams that you see playing in the World Cup on the men's and women's side and all the way down. That is the organization of which we are a part, and proudly so. This is just who we are. We're an organization that makes ourselves available to players and athletes starting now at about 4 years old all the way through 18, irrespective of ability. We have travel programs, we have recreational programs, and we're especially proud of our free TOPS program, which is a program that we offer for athletes of any age who are with intellectual or physical challenges and disabilities, where they can come out every Saturday and we put together a program for them using mentors and trainees and trainers from our high school and youth soccer teams and from the high school programs. And so that's something that we run and we're very proud of that. And then we offer that free of charge to the community. So who are we? I mentioned that we're big. In the fall, we have 1,000 players in our U4 through 12 programs. In the spring, it's about 800. We run programs in the fall, spring, and winter. And as I say, we have about 140 volunteer coaches. Our cost to play, we think, is extremely reasonable, between $100 and $200 per player, which is 8 to 10 weeks of playing out on the fields. Who does that cover? It's our instructional, which is our U5, all the way up through senior travel, which is for kids in high school in the spring when they no longer have a high school season. It's an opportunity for them to continue to play. In the 20 years that I've been on the board, we've grown significantly the program offerings. 12 years ago, we added a kindergarten age program. 8 years ago, we added a pre-K program. 7 years ago, we added travel for kids that are in our under 9 programs, and we did that in response to our membership, and that's to whom we're responsive, and that's part of the reason I'm here, because I'm responding to the needs of our membership and the requests that we've gotten. We focus basically on 3 things. We focus on developing players and coaches and officials. One of the things that we're really proud of is that most of the referees in our organization who are paid to officiate are kids who came up through the program. We started as players, love the sport, and are now out there on Saturdays and Sundays earning money, officiating the game, and as part of it. And so we work hard to develop them, develop our players, and train our coaches. All of our coaches go through lots of certifications and safe sports and education modules so they can be responsible stewards of the players, responsible stewards of the program, and responsible stewards of the sport. And we also work hard to maintain our fields. We are very fortunate to work in conjunction with Culture Parks and Rec. Tom and Orlando are here, and all the effort that they put in to maintain our fields and the effort that we put in as well to keep up our fields. We have members, some who are here, who are out there helping out with lines, moving equipment, fixing nets, fixing grass, doing what we can so that our facility is the best it can possibly be. So what is our facility? As everybody knows, I think our primary facility is Curtis Park. That's the primary game facility for our travel programs, our rec, Farmington Valley program, senior travel, instructional league games. It's where we hold tryouts. It's where some of our youth programs are. In the fall, we're able to use Iron Horse, sort of when available, because there are challenges with the events that go on there, but we again able to work in a fairly well coordinated way to accommodate that. We use Oracle for a lot of our U8 and U6 programs. Our TOPS program is currently at Meadow Pond. And Squadron Line we use very heavily as well for our 9v9. For those who don't know, US Soccer has mandated certain field sizes for certain ages. So if you are between the ages of 12 and 15, you play on a full-size field, 12 to 18, like you would see on television or at high school or whatever. But as you get younger, the fields get smaller, the goals get smaller. It's all equipment we've had to purchase over the years. And the idea is, so you put a bunch of 6-year-olds on a field that's the size of a football field, they're not gonna have a ton of fun, they're not gonna get a ton of touches on the ball. So everything is designed to accommodate that, and Squadron hosts our mid-sized field. But we don't have the fields that we used to have. Henry James is no longer something that we have access to. Weetog, Latimer, and our footprint has shrunk and our program has grown. And the net result is the fields that we do have access to have suffered for our overuse. Thanks to the good works again of the Parks and Rec folks, we've kept the fields up. We've been good stewards ourselves. We don't play when the weather is bad. We stay out of goal boxes. We give instructions. But the truth is, when we think about Curtis Park especially, which is our primary field, it was designed as a game field only, Saturdays and Sundays. We now use it 7 days a week, fall and spring, double booked every Monday through Friday. And it's just being used in a way it was never intended. Over the last 15 years, the club, using money from our membership, has put about $500,000 into Curtis Park, which is a town facility. We've built a field B, in conjunction with the town. We've added security gates and goals and lightning safety at our pavilion to create a safer environment. We've collected that money from our members and then used it on our fields, and we're proud of that. And it's that level of ownership is really important for us because it gives us that vested interest. But the truth is, we're overusing the facility. And as you guys know, if you ever drive down 315 in the fall, we're spending about $30,000 a year to bring in portable lights, so that way we can use the fields in the evenings as well, because light does get short once you get to late September. And in addition to that $500,000 or more that I've mentioned, every year we're paying about $20,000 to the town in membership fees to help with the upkeep that goes, so that Tom and Orlando and their guys can do their work. So over the last year, I've approached folks in the town about what can we do, how can we make Curtis Park better? It used to be that Curtis Park was really a shining spot of soccer in the state. It really was. And the truth is, as nice as it still is, we've been passed, and the facility, as we continue to use it, is continuing to degrade. And what we want to do is come up with a plan to make it better. And but we didn't, this was not us going in and trying to dip our toe in the water. We believe very strongly if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. We have 50 years of membership, and who we made a concerted effort to reach out to, and what are our needs, what are our wants, what are our desires, and it was to make Curtis what it can be. Right now it's field, it's very nice. It doesn't have concessions, it doesn't have bathrooms, it doesn't have paved parking in the same way, and the fields, like we said, are suffering. So what did we do? We approached an organization called Cogio and asked them to conduct a feasibility on behalf of the soccer club as to how feasible it is for us to do a project at Curtis Park that would improve it significantly. How did the town feel? How did stakeholders feel? Was there money available from the soccer club to make it happen? At the same time, we also engage the services of Activitas. They are a specialized engineering firm who focus entirely on the design and construction of playing fields, athletic fields. And we asked them to come up with what an improved Curtis Park would look like. Cogio called a lot of people. Some of you in this room may have gotten calls. They solicited our membership, and they came up with a couple of really interesting findings. And what they found is that the Simsbury Soccer Club is in a great position because of its image and its reputation and the facilities that exist to improve upon Curtis Park and turn it into a state-of-the-art facility. That it could create even a more community-oriented space with walking paths through the woods, playgrounds that would make it a more community-focused activity. The folks, both alumni and currently involved in the club, expressed a high level of personal commitment to SSC. And there was a broad level of support and enthusiasm for the opportunity to enhance our facilities. We also found that membership past and present, and this was not something we were necessarily looking for, found a great path for what they termed economic development through this program. When I was younger, and I didn't grow up in Simsbury, I've been here 20 years, I grew up in Trumbull, but when I was younger, Simsbury hosted an annual July 4th soccer tournament where teams from all over, not just the state, but the region would come here and play. Even when I was on the board 20 years ago, I ran a spring tournament that we had at Curtis that brought teams from all over, that in that case farm in the valley and other parts of Connecticut. And we don't do those tournaments anymore because our field simply can't handle them. The abuse that they would take from doing that would just be too much. We rest them all summer. We don't use them because we need them for the fall. And that was an opportunity to bring a lot of folks into the town. So Cogio did its study and they found that the town and that the community and the soccer membership is ready for this program and willing and able to support it. What's this program? So we hired Activitas and we asked them to get to work on a master plan for Curtis Park. In the most general terms, this is it. The dark green are turf fields, the light green are improved grass facilities. You can see what it looks like. They've taken the opportunity to add a field by turning the orientation. They've added those walking paths, they've added a playground, they've added a building, they've added, as a result, concessions, they've added lighting. All of that is ways to make use of what is a great facility available to the membership for much longer periods of time, irrespective of weather, and to improve the current condition. It's also, as a safety matter, has really improved the circulation. No more occasional parking on 315 from recalcitrant people, despite our best efforts to tell other towns not to have their folks parking there. The building with concessions and places for our membership to organize. The playground as well. One of the comments that came back to us is that there's no real playground space on that side of town in that area, and this would allow parents who come and bring their kids to stay there rather than drop off and play with their younger kids and have a place to be, especially if there was playgrounds and walking paths and concessions. We have some folks who sort of are dedicated to jogging around Curtis while their kids are playing, but it's not great for that, and the idea of adding paths would enable people to do that. So we said, okay, is it doable? And what we learned is it is doable, but it's doable in phases. And so we asked Activitas to phase out the project, and they came up with a phase one, which immediately takes 3 spaces and creates 4 fields, 3 of which are turfed, 1 of which is grass, in basically and largely the existing footprint. Then that adds the playground and ultimately the building. And then phase 2 starts to add work on fields in the wings, and ultimately improve the entire facility. So what have we done? Because we didn't just hire Activitas and Cogio over the last year. We have met with some of the folks that are here. We have met with town staff. Last month, we were fortunate enough to go before the Culture, Parks and Rec Committee and ask for their support on two items. We presented to them. And the same why are we here today? Not just to tell you about the project, but to tell you what we're trying to accomplish and how we want to get there. Our goal is to do this very significant and expensive looking project, but to do it through our own fundraising efforts. Part of the reason we hired Cogio is because that is what they specialize in, is helping organizations like ours raise significant amounts of money for these types of projects. So that's our goal. And we're asking, I think, for 2 things from this board. The first is your support in that endeavor. Your go get 'em, because it is town property. And so in order to do all this and move to the next stage and have Activitas start getting approvals and everything, we need your authority to do that. And the second is we want your approval on an agreement that Simsbury Soccer does and will continue to have for a defined period of time, priority access to Curtis Park. While we have de facto priority access to Curtis, if I'm gonna raise a significant amount of money from my membership and alumni, I need to be able to tell them that they're raising it and contributing it for the reason that they believe they're doing that, which is for the soccer club to build this project. And so those are the 2 things that I'm asking for. I'm asking for your support on this. We feel very strongly that, we have to jump in with both feet to this. We've done a lot of groundwork over the last year to bring us to this point. We think it's great, we're excited about it, and now we're looking for the support from the board.
I'm gonna open up for questions, but Tom, I wanted to see if Tom T wanted to make any comments.
I would say, I think this is a great project for the town. We've evaluated it from a maintenance standpoint, staff standpoint, and with the Culture Parks and Recreation Department. And there's a couple of our commission members here tonight who are very supportive of the project. I think it's a good thing for the town long term. It improves the safety at the complex. Certainly Ben addressed the traffic flow as well. It adds amenities that we don't have over there that anybody who's I think it's gonna increase the accessibility of the property for families who may have people who have issues with mobility. Those fields become a lot more accessible to them and their family members. There's gonna be challenges getting it through, with the permitting. Their engineers have looked at it. So it's something our land use boards will take a close look at, but I think it's doable. I think it's a great thing for the town. I think their ask is reasonable. Certainly with we'll hammer out, if it's supported by the board, we'll hammer out an MOU that outlines, responsibilities going forward, long-term maintenance as well. But all in all, we're, from a department standpoint, we would like to see this happen. I can't imagine that anybody would, it's not every day that somebody comes knocking on your door asking to put $7 to $8 million into a town complex. That improves it's a big improvement over what we have now.
Anyone have questions on
I had a couple quick
Oh.
So you just said anything.
That's okay, let's start with.
Question for you, so the other sports, right, so if you get, I noticed the list, the ones that you no longer use, those are the fields that no one wants, like Henry James, and Orlando, the back area of Henry James is better, but the one you see, the closer one that needs new sprinkling. So you guys don't use that anymore, you don't use the one that's, I forget the list, but basically those three are ones that most clubs don't wanna use. So if you're now making this solo for soccer, which I love this seems like a great plan, but what are the other sports? Are you gonna give up like Iron Horse so that you have more flexibility for lacrosse and for other sports?
Sure. I'll explain that in a couple of different ways. So first of all, with respect to Curtis, we are the only ones who use it now, so nothing would change there. We walked away from Henry James and Weetag, not because we don't want to use them, but because we wanted to give the other there was concerns about usage. We said we will take our program out of there so that other programs, whether it's football, lacrosse, whatever, could have access to use those fields so that there's not a conflict issue. So it wasn't that we don't want to use them, we could use the space, but we don't. We've tried to make it work elsewhere. With respect to Iron Horse, we only use it in the fall. Lacrosse uses it in the spring. And again, we've just gotten back to using it in the fall, frankly, as a way to try to rest fields because otherwise the fields at Curtis were just taking too much abuse. And frankly, the truth is, as compared to the other organizations in town, there's just numerically no other organization that compares. We have over 1,000 kids. Most of the other ones, with exception of Little League, which is at about 700, 300, 400, they're just not comparable numbers wise. We just need a lot of space. And so focusing our energy to improve this will allow us to accomplish a lot of that.
Steve had a question.
Is there any component on the west side of Route 315?
Across the street?
Yeah.
Listen, you wanna write me a check for 15 million, I can put a heck of a project across the street too. But the truth is, we're mindful of that is the most challenging piece because of the water issues. This fall, it didn't rain at all, and as a result, we had full usage across the street. That's not always the case, and just from an engineering standpoint, that'd be a more challenging parcel. Our engineers did look at it, there's a path forward there, but that's a couple levels down on the phasing.
In the long term, so for the facilities, the bathroom facilities and the concessions, who is going to be maintaining and cleaning, and is that Parks and
I would imagine it would be similar to the agreement we have with Little League, where they maintain and maintain their snack stand and they pay for cleaning of their own restrooms. I would imagine it'd be similar, and that would be outlined in the MOU with these guys.
So like during soccer usage, or like if somebody is walking and they use the restroom, they'd still be responsible for it.
Yeah, I mean, currently there are portalets there for people who, do the dog walking or
Right.
whatever over there, or people stop them when they're going by. Again, now it's a facility I don't know that we wanna leave it unlocked throughout the day.
Great, fair.
I would think that that's right, yeah.
Would you consider connecting it to the bike path? Cause we're supposedly putting this new bike path
Right.
in Terriffill so that people from Terriffill can get to
it won't be it'll be the bike path from from Hot Meadow down to
But also
fields.
through Terrible, right?
It's going,
kind of-
that's a different path
Yeah.
now.
Two separate projects. But I'll give you a whole presentation in like 20 minutes.
You have the bridge and you have the, okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the water issues, you mentioned the water issues on the other side, still the alluvial plain here, and now you're gonna invest in the artificial turf and all that, pretty significant. Your thoughts or concerns on that? I'm not an engineer.
So it's a good question. You'll note on there that the floodplain and the 100-foot mark are noted. It's something the engineers are very aware of, and they feel very comfortable that they can manage it, and that especially the newer turfs and how they function in that environment will be able to deal with the water. I mean, I can't, more than that, I can't give you as an engineering answer, other than the folks that we hired say that they're very comfortable that it's manageable there.
There's people smarter than me that
Right.
say that. Well, and thanks for your leadership, on this. Honestly, I think it's awesome that there's such a successful program and that you're willing to, stick your neck out and try to do something that's even bigger and better. So thanks for the presentation.
Just a question, a couple questions I'd asked Tom a few before. Access to the area will still remain if people walk there with their significant other or their significant pet to go through, once it's changed to turf, obviously you don't want that on the turf field, but the area would still be open since it's town land, correct?
So, and in fact, I would think that by adding, this walking path, I mean, as a general rule, we don't love dogs running on the fields anyway, because they tend to then leave us surprises that the kids come deal with when they come out to play. But by adding the paths and the other accoutrement, you would have opportunities.
That's my favorite word. And then what's your timeline, I guess, the time frame of the full project? What's your estimate on that?
So the construction part of, for instance, just a construction piece, forget approvals and all that stuff, they feel the construction folks have told me that, as remarkable as it sounds, that they could start on a June 15 of a year, and that by September 15th of the following year, we'd be playing on the fields. The challenge is not the construction here, because Curtis is already pretty well graded for athletic facilities, they're already there. It's just the fundraising. So I have to get to a point in my fundraising where we could feel comfortable giving the go-ahead on the construction side. And that, remains to be seen. We have some very significant gifts already that have been promised if we can move it forward. The largest of which is $500,000. But we, in order to, I need more than that in order to start the process.
So I do think this is great. We do not have enough turf fields and just playing fields in general for all of our sports. But I'm curious, while the construction is underway, where the teams will play and how you will manage that.
So there's a couple of good answers to that question, and it's a good question and one we've thought about a lot. One is that construction schedule that I just gave you, that June to September, allows us to solve a lot of it just by a matter of the calendar. Because we're not playing on those fields anyway in July and August, so it gives us that opportunity. We've also had conversations, very preliminary, with some of the other school institutions, private institutions in town about opportunities to play there. And use those fields if there is a bit of a lag period.
So when you said the timeline, it was June 15th to September 15th of the following year, so
90 days.
okay, cause you had said a following year, which made it sound like 18 months.
I got it.
Sorry, okay, that's where I think we were concerned.
So I'd like to, we have to keep moving, we're gonna be here all night. Next steps on this is would get consensus from our board to put together an MOU, I believe would be the consensus,
And then would the MOU come back to us? Because
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious what that would look like is.
If you give us a green light, we'll have it back to you within 30 days.
and then we'll mark it up and give it back to you to get back to us. I'm sure there'll be, cause maintenance, long-term replacement of fields, long-term capital replacement items, are we assuming that will be on the soccer club or will that fall to the town? Things like that.
Well, so we'll have to look at that. I mean, there are already planned maintenance activities out there that may have been budgeted for or talked about. And so how that gets addressed and wrapped into all of this, we'll have to figure, and that'll be part of that.
And then will this all go through planning, design review, zoning for signage and?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would need the appropriate approvals.
Okay. Do we have to if we have consensus, I don't know if we have consensus to ask for the MOU, or should we put something on tonight's agenda or the next agenda? I don't know the timeline.
If you could do it tonight, that would be great, Chair.
Okay, would we need a formal vote to ask for the MOU? So,
And
okay.
if I could just, so
It was bigger.
procurement,
Yeah.
all of that, it's a government project, right? So you figured prices in.
Well, I mean, and that's something that's been,
Yeah.
to be fair, has been a bit of a mystery.
Well,
And so,
I wanna make sure it's not a mystery before I tell them I could do it in a month.
right,
Right, so
Understood.
we can talk offline, but-
yes.
okay.
Yeah,
What's our
like
current
prevailing
MOU?
wage and stuff?
Do we have a current MOU in place or is it just
No.
facilities use agreement?
We do not have a current MOU in place.
Okay, I guess that's the next step.
So I'll make a motion
Yeah, thank you.
to authorize the town manager to draft an MOU for the board's consideration at our next appropriate meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
you're welcome.
Congratulations. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
See, government works really fast. Okay, the next item we have is the Sustainability Committee and the Power Smart. Mark, you're here, is Power Smart here? Who's doing this?
Chair, if I could,
Yeah.
we just had a text that SCTV was down, if I could, are we back
I
up?
went and checked with them, they're working on it.
SCTV is
I'm
down.
recorded.
Just wanted to let you know.
Stop.
Live YouTube coming.
No, I just wanted to let you know for the, you might want to make that announcement for the minutes.
It's still being recorded, so like the whole meeting will be up in its entirety out.
Yeah, I hear the frustrations at home sometimes as it goes out.
We just wanted to let you know in case you wanna make a comment about that.
you're
good.
before-
It's fine.
Okay, I make a comment that we've kind of lost SCTV somewhere along the line and we're back now, but if it does happen again, the whole meeting will be online. You can find it on the website once the meeting's over. Is that good technically,
Yeah,
Kevin?
thank you,
Good
yes,
description. Okay, sustainability, you guys can you do it less than 15 minutes?
I think we have a high-speed presentation tonight.
9
I'm gonna keep it short. My basic point tonight is to introduce Mark Scully, who's chair of our Sustainability Committee. Mark is stepping down after dozen years,
Oh.
just about,
Sure how many.
on our commission to focus on some other things, so we could give him this as his last hurrah. He's always done a great job when he's presented here.
Lay it on thick, I guess.
I'm sure as you know, this is something near and dear to his heart. This program that Mark's gonna go into a lot of detail on is very similar to what we did a number of years back where we did the Solarize Simsbury. And we worked very hard to help facilitate residents getting solar on their house. This is a similar type of program, except it's engaged in battery storage. So with that, with time in mind, I'm gonna step aside and let Mark handle it.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you for the opportunity. I don't intend to give you a long presentation here tonight. As Tom mentioned, we did a Solarize program in 2014. And the idea is we would pick one installer for solar and host a bunch of events. We do a workshop, we did a live demonstration of solar, and the idea is you raise awareness about solar, make it easier to get a quote, so to demystify it, get a little buzz going about solar. And we got 84 houses to step up and get solar at that time. And these campaigns were done across the state, very successful. And you really should do it regularly, right? Because people come into town, they don't know solar, the incentives change, the programs change, the technology change. So as Tom mentioned, what we are proposing to do now is avail ourselves of an opportunity that a group called Smart Power, and they worked with us on Solarize 10 years ago, right?
At least, yeah.
And this one is focused on storage, battery storage. And the reason this program came into existence is that there is a relatively new program in the state called Energy Storage Solutions to promote energy storage or to promote battery storage. It's got a residential side and a commercial side. So the idea is we would launch a campaign. This nonprofit would help us. They're funded by a grant from the Department of Energy. So they would be providing a website, they would be providing materials, flyers, yard signs and things. They would be running the program. There's no cost to us, and I think an important point is Solarize 10 years ago, we picked one installer. And there was quite a detailed process that went into that. The Green Bank had vetted installers. We went and then I think there were about 4 or so different installers. We interviewed, picked one, and then there was one company and the town sent out a letter saying we're doing this campaign. We're not selecting any preferred vendor right now, right? The Energy Storage Solutions Program is administered by the Green Bank. They vet vendors of battery storage. So we'll use their list, they vetted them all. It's not the situation where we say, oh, you want a battery storage, talk to this one company. It's really no. Here's a list of potential installers. So I know that a concern that towns sometimes have is we're endorsing one company, a resident gets an installation, they have a problem, they blame the town, right? So I think there's less of that than we had 10 years ago because, as I say, we're not selecting a single vendor. And this is a program, this would be the 3rd round of the program. I think there's 28 towns altogether have done it or are doing it. And we'd love to do it. What they're asking of the town is to do a press release, to help publicize through our regular communication channels, host some meetings, give us some meeting spaces, and then attend some regular meetings to just see how the program is doing. The idea behind the program is to promote battery storage, right? We need more, and it actually covers, I went to the kickoff for the campaign in Avon, and it also covers a lot about solar. Because if you have solar already, good idea to get a battery. If you are getting the battery, it's probably advantageous to also get solar. So it's a great opportunity at very little cost to the town to just raise awareness, help people learn about battery storage and how that could help them, lower and stabilize their energy bills. So there's a memorandum of understanding that you'll be asked to sign.
Yep, I have that. Just a couple questions. I had a concern when I first heard about this, any sort of drain on town resources because we have to do the publicizing and scheduling and all this kind of stuff. Are we okay taking that on? Is just a question.
Yes, we are. We asked those questions too, and we're satisfied.
And then the other thing is like the overall value to the residents. I mean, are people jumping through a lot of hoops to sign up for this? Is it worth the endeavor? I don't think I'm gonna say no, but I'm just saying, will the outcome benefit?
I'm jumping up, you're hitting them with
Yeah,
some hard
thank you.
questions. I think the big thing with this campaign is battery storage is new. Even as Mark explained it, I think there's a lot of people still sitting around going, I'm not quite sure what that means. I have solar on my house, but when we lose power, that solar doesn't turn on because the meter is not connected. If you had a battery, your solar panels on your roof now work like a generator. If you lost power, that battery would run your household for several hours. The other thing that it does is it helps the grid in terms of on those really hot summer days where the ability for the power companies to put enough energy into the grid are being used up by our air conditioning systems, houses can run on battery, which helps the grid. So I think this is really less about getting these into houses as much as it's getting the word out to the community that this is an option.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Are there state or federal incentives for somebody to install battery power storage in their house?
So the state program, this Energy Storage Solutions, has both upfront incentives, so you get like a rebate. And as Tom said, they'll actually see if you have a battery connected to the grid, the utility can use that battery, or they will pay you for that. So you'll get a actual payment each, I don't know if it's monthly or yearly, but if there's a power surge or a fluctuation in voltage or frequency, then they can actually use your battery. So if you fast forward and we got lots of batteries and maybe even we're using our car batteries, this is a tremendous resource. So
Maybe we can raise our rates.
federal,
I'm just.
I think there's federal tax credits as well. I'm not sure about that.
Will Smart Power be providing us any information on the effectiveness of the campaign? Will there be any updates on energy savings and numbers of installations?
Certainly on the campaign itself, a number of events and inquiries and contracts, and so certainly on the campaign, I don't know if there's follow-up in terms of, now you had a battery, years later, has, what impact has it had? I'm not sure about that.
Or are you asking, have the 28 towns that are doing it now, have they improved?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
Okay.
if they have data, but I was curious if we go through with this, what kind of data we'll receive.
I think it'll be twofold. We'll have the information from the campaign, and I think we'll have at least a pretty good idea of who's participated and who hasn't. We'll also have information, I believe, from our building official as to how many people have pulled permits for the installation. And I think any installations at this point that could contribute to the campaign.
We actually have an agenda item for this, which is I don't think I need to move it, right, 'cause hopefully we'll go quickly. And we need to move on to the next presentation, so if anybody has no further questions, we're gonna move on.
Thank you.
Alright, thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Good job.
Tom, are you a 15 minutes on your updates?
Oh, I think I can be 7.
Okay, so I was
Like
gonna ask if
7?
you wanted to move them, but you're welcome to do them, we're here.
Alright.
I apologize to people who have come
You
for
wanna take one and pass it
critical
down?
items tonight. We'll be serving drinks later.
Oh, we weren't supposed to start?
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. Can't have any fun.
Alright, so up first, I think probably the most hotly debated or the
Yes.
biggest one of the night is the pickleball courts in Terriffville. We have a significant amount of money that's been appropriated. Unfortunately, as we talked about 6 months ago, the existing tennis courts are located in the floodway. We have been frustrated is the nicest word I got tonight with FEMA in waiting for them to update the new flood maps. Sadly, they keep telling us it's gonna be 6 months, and that's not the case. If we are to continue in the direction we're going and we're gonna wait for the FEMA flood maps to be updated, we're looking at construction in '27. The other option that has always been an option is we do a smaller set of courts, 4 courts instead of 6, asphalt instead of concrete, and we could do that this construction season. That would be in the same footprint, in the same fence line. It's a little bit more difficult for Tom in terms of it's not gonna be the high quality construction, it's gonna be asphalt courts. It would probably have a life expectancy of quality play of 5 to 7 years, but we get it built sooner rather than continuing.
What's the cost?
About 50,000 plus or minus.
What's the quality of or the lifespan of concrete?
It would be asphalt with concrete. Concrete, you're looking probably 15 to 20 years comfortably, if not longer.
So 50K total?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the 4,
For the
Yeah.
4 courts.
if we wait, like if we do that. If we
were to
wait,
do
the
that.
cost is going to be.
Yeah, this is what the cost is.
Yeah.
Like
The cost is gonna
the
be
350 plus.
north of 400.
Yeah.
Because these courts already went up 100,000, last budget's like, so we're
That's
gonna push it off another year. Should we,
Yeah.
another 100,000 maybe?
We're not.
You start questioning that. The original project didn't include any design or design fees, permitting fees, that type of thing. It also was a factor of contingency. This is going back several years. If it goes to 27, it may be a little bit more expensive. Right now, we're looking at construction pricing that's very unstable associated with the potential for tariffs coming later this month.
Okay. So we did talk about having a smaller internal discussion on this to see.
And I would suggest, especially with the, I'm down to 6 minutes, that we put a pin in it. We know that we have this as a discussion point. I think it's something that Culture Park and Rec really needs to weigh in on, is what's the right decision for us. We've talked about, can we relocate the courts? We want them to be in Terriffville. There's not another good viable option. The only other option would be put them in another spot in the park, which means you're losing the softball, which is, so vital to that park and so vital to Terriffville.
And I was just gonna comment that a couple of people said moving them, but the reason that we allocated that much money for these courts was because it was in Terriffville. The effort to do improvements with the bike trail, river access, the plan that we're doing for downtown. George isn't here right now. So that's where the plan was supposed to happen. So if we can find some kind of solution. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not the perfect solution, but it's one that gets us moving
Okay.
and it's worth further discussion. The Firetown Road
Yep.
sidewalks from West Street to Plank Hill, we have finished the design. We are going through some right-of-way discussions. We have 14 impacted homes where through our grant process, we have to provide an appraisal of the small slivers of land that we need to fit the sidewalk in. We've been meeting one-on-one with each of those. It's been going generally well. We have come into a challenge where Hot Meadow Country Club has not accepted the appraised value from our appraiser. We're working through that with Bob DeCrescenzo, our town attorney, to come up with what's gonna be the best path forward.
Just a comment, you guys did a presentation earlier, was it this year or last year? With Adam,
Yeah, we did a
with
presentation.
the neighborhood, you did a really nice job.
Thank you. I think the engineering team that's been working on this has done a great job. They've met with every single homeowner individually, as well as doing the larger presentation. So there's been a real effort to have everybody involved, including the country club.
What's the timeline for that we're thinking for this? That's a question I have.
That's where this is very uncomfortable. Our expectation is to be in construction this summer. We are waiting to go out to bid, and our plan is to bid within 3 weeks. Right now, the country club is the biggest issue holding us up. And the question is, are we gonna change the design to a wall instead of having graded slopes onto their property? But we really don't wanna delay this project any further. As Wendy can attest from the meeting, the overwhelming support from the folks impacted, and they were shocked.
And I was one of the questioners of that whole sidewalk, and I got the gist of the value from that meeting.
The Flower Bridge, I mean, everybody's driven by, it's a nice shade of green. They're in the home stretch, they have some structural steel that's been replaced that we're waiting for the temperatures to come up. We can only paint when the temperature is in the 40-degree range. They're putting on the decking. The big key factor on that is that we are within budget and there will be flowers there this spring, so.
Well done, well
Okay,
done.
Curtis, for you, bike trail. There's 2 bike trails to talk about tonight. Bike trail from Hot Meadow Street to Curtis Park. We are finishing getting that federalized, going through the process we had to go through because of the wild scenic designation of the Farmington River. We had to go through Army Corps of Engineer permitting. Final stages of that, we still have a couple of small hurdles. We're looking to be advertised for bid on that in the next 6 weeks. We look to start construction late fall of this year and be done next summer. Okay. Climax Road Bridge replacement, that one is almost entirely grant funded. That is funded through the LOTSIP program, but it also involves Connecticut DOT. Connecticut DOT has some concerns about that being a funded bridge replacement project because of the fact that it still has an adequate load rating. So even though if you drive by it, the rails are falling in, the concrete is spalled and deteriorated, they're saying you can fix it rather than replace it. Either way, we're guaranteed that the grant that we had is ours, and we have 2 choices. We can either work to convince Connecticut DOT to do a full bridge replacement, or we will do a significant rehabilitation, and we'll have to then build a pedestrian component with that to make sure that we can have safe pedestrian crossing there. So that's looking at construction of 27. Stoddard Dam removal, we've started that, we have design team involved. I think the biggest aspect on that is that we're looking to relocate the Simsbury, the Fish and Game or just the Fish Club? Fish and Game Club. Unfortunately, that's been the only use for the impoundment behind that dam. Now it's looking at construction of 28. Simsbury Performing Arts Center, we are looking to have that advertised in about 4 weeks. We want to advertise and have that done early, so if by chance the financing is not in place, we have time to make value engineering decisions. We are looking for construction October of this year. Our favorite, the Meadowwood Barns. We went out to bid, it was not pretty, we only had one bidder, and they said to rehabilitate those 2 barns so that they could be used and have people housed or go inside them to look at the historic nature was $2.3 million. We hit the brakes, we went back, we've worked with SHPO and the Trust for Public Land. We are now looking at changing the scope so that it will be to make the barns structurally stable. They are not going to be for any human occupancy. We are not gonna have people walking through even on a once a year basis. So hopefully with a lower standard of construction, we are gonna go back out to bid and see if we can get back to a number that's within our budget.
So, I don't wanna keep asking questions, but basically, if you can't go in, then we're just gonna have a sign out front that says the historical nature of it, so people know what it
It'll
was
say the
for.
historical nature and good or bad with the fact that a couple of the barns have come down. There is land next to the barns where the Trust for Public Land may be able to do some sort of art installation, whether it's signs, pictures, something that will have some meaning to the historic nature of the barns.
Dredging
Dredging it up.
Forest Pond.
So
We are
that's
in
Stratton
the
Brook, is that where that is, Tom? I'm sorry, it says Town Forest Road dredging, but I just don't know.
You didn't take your kids to the farm there?
Town Forest Park. Town Forest Park.
It said road. I just was confused. I didn't know what the dredge.
We're not gonna dredge the road, just the park. We've gone to conservation, and out of an abundance of caution, they're asking us to wait till the summer to make sure that there is not any kind of impact in any of the creatures that may be living in the sediments out there. We have tested the sediments. The biggest challenge we are gonna have is when we dredge everything out, we need to find a home for that material that was dredged out, silty, sandy material. Eno Hall, it's kind of three projects all tied together. We have Eno Hall parking lot, Eno Hall entrances, and Station Street one-way to two-way. We were held up by Connecticut DOT. They've asked for what's called traffic counts on the Station Street from one-way to two-way. Really frustrating. We had met with them early in the process. Their staff had told us that there was no impact on traffic on Route 10 if you suddenly allowed cars to turn in there. As we went through our permitting process, the district has asked us to get traffic counts. We've circled back around to get traffic counts. There's a cost associated with this, and it's delaying the other projects because we can't do the entrance improvements until we have the Station Street piece lined up. We are gonna bid the entrance improvements this spring. Looks like we're probably only gonna be able to afford to do the south entrance, but it's gonna get us 2 ADA accessible entrances into Eno Hall. Yeah. Town Hall parking lot improvements, everybody's been generally happy. It looks good. We did a lot of work in-house to make it affordable. Only thing left is gonna be the landscaping. Pine Hill sanitary sewer replacements, I know that took up a lot of time on this board many months ago. The residents were thrilled with the work that went on this summer. The only thing I gotta tell you, I was disappointed, they actually put on a picnic for the contractor. I didn't get invited, I was very, really hurt. We have to pave the road in the spring, and hopefully that goes well and we get good pricing on that. But we are not too far off our original cost estimates. It's gonna be a reasonably affordable project for them, and again, they seem to be very, very happy with the outcome. Any projects that we didn't talk about?
Pine Hill Sanitaries. You didn't talk about.
Yeah, you
just did.
I'm sorry.
Happy residents in the party.
Sorry.
Both of us didn't
You didn't get invited either.
I was reading the parking lot improvement numbers. Sorry, I was
On the
missed that
Simpak
one.
project, there's all the question about the, money raised, for that as well. I don't know if we know of any update on the outside funding that they're getting.
I do.
We had a meeting, was it last week?
Last week?
Last week.
They were a little bit short and they're trying to mitigate that. The issue is I think they've got one or maybe two funders that, large amounts, donors, but they're dividing it over multiple years. And so we're doing the math on that and we're gonna get back together again in a few weeks, see how far away.
Yeah, they are just shy, they're over the amount needed to raise in pledges, but in cash in hand, they're just shy of the, not very far, but they're just shy. And continuing to fundraise and will continue to fundraise even when they meet and exceed that, because they know they need money as going forward. But it within a comfortable number that shovels, but agreed that shovels, even though things may go out to bid, shovels will not go in ground until the money is in hand.
That's kind of my question.
Yeah,
No,
I made
was-
that case very.
Yeah, we were very clear on that.
Okay,
Great, well, congrats to them on the work they've done and
thank you. Sorry I missed the Pine Hill.
That's all right.
My favorite one, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really gonna I'm asking everybody to do a quick report tonight and try to keep it brief, cause I'm just gonna give a couple updates. The Charter Commission has their public hearing is scheduled for January 23rd, is at 6 or 7 p.m. at, where is it, here? Oh, it's somewhere.
Yeah.
I just remembered to say that. Martin Luther King Day is the 20th, there's a celebration at First Church at 2 p.m. 2 p.m.?
Yes, on Monday.
I'm not sure of myself anymore after that. I do just wanna address the LA fires. I know we're not in LA. Everybody has family, friends, or somebody that lives there and knows them. And the one thing that just keeps hitting home that I always think about is it could be our town that burned to the ground and lost all the infrastructure. And so just have a kind of heart for that. I did not write up my report, but it'll be coming out soon, and then you can read everything that I'm not saying tonight. I'm gonna turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Chair. Just to follow up on the location of the charter revision meeting is the Terraful Room at the library, January 23rd at 6 p.m.
Okay.
I'll be brief, just a couple of things, a shout out to social services. On December 19th, they held their annual holiday program, giving gifts to more than 111 children within our community. Buddy the Elf even stopped by. There'll be some photos online tomorrow. Second quick thing, our food pantry is moving to the First Church of Christ, located at 689 Hot Meadow Street. Mark your calendars for the first food pantry distribution event, Cheese Day, at our new location, which is scheduled for February 18th. Stay tuned for more information on Stock the Pantry pop-up events and the pantry's official ribbon cutting ceremony. I just want to thank the First Church of Christ for welcoming us there. It's going to be a fantastic location, and that's all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Selectmen reports, I'll start down with Curtis.
Brief zoning, we've entered the 90-day decision period for the moratorium on the 830G. So they'll have to have a decision by March 27th as to whether or not we qualify for moratorium. They're in the process of asking us for money for the zoning regulations rewrite. Last year we gave them $75,000, they're looking for another $50,000 for a total of $125,000 for the zoning regulation rewrite. And they're gonna continue the public hearing on housing strategy on January 22nd.
Okay, thanks. Heather?
Okay, so public safety, I'm going to dial back a little and just remind residents that we did put out our quarterly public safety newsletter where a lot of this information is, but there's a lot in it, just this time of year with home fires and winter safety tips. Also, the food pantry will begin distributions from its new location at First Church in February. And social services has their CT Energy Assistance Program, and Eversource is also reminding residents to go on Energize CT to look at supplier choices to lower energy costs. And that through the efforts of our fire district and emergency management, that we have a radio station now for emergencies, and when we don't have emergencies, there will be full free music available on it, but that's WSIM 103.5 FM. And then the rest, I'll just encourage people to go on and look at the newsletter. Also, I attended the ambulance board meeting. Call volumes through December, overall 911 dispatches increased by 1.35%. SVAA dispatches increased by 5.04%. Transports increased by 5.71. Mutual aid in decreased by 27.16%, which was a really big number for them. And mutual aid out increased by 19%. They are in the process of completing their 2025 budget. They kind of went through a draft, but they're waiting to put it out when they have full numbers, and they'll be presenting to us on the 27th.
Okay.
Briefly, Simsbury Housing Policy Advisory Committee is on home stretch with one meeting left before they give the letter of recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. Simsbury Main Street Partnership has placed the last few tenants affected by the fire at 730 Hot Meadow Street, and they were also able to save the future tenants of 730 Hot Meadow Street and place them in alternative commercial properties in Simsbury. Prime IV will have a soft opening at Simsbury Town Shops at the end of this month. Lucky Gut Collective is slated for a February opening at Fiddler's Green. And on the success of the Skilled Trades panel at Capstone at Simsbury High School last year, they have set up a career day on April 23rd with over a dozen speakers lined up for such.
Thank you.
Briefly, the one thing I wanna mention on the Board of Ed is that they had a pilot program involving cameras on school buses, which improved safety on the buses. They started with 6 buses and they're moving to 10, and then there will be another 10. There is a meeting tomorrow night. Hopefully I'll have more information next time. CPR, we're gonna go over the golf stuff and school fees, so I don't have to talk about that, but I did want to recognize that the chair of Cultural Parks and Rec Commission, Dave Bush, was awarded the Connecticut Recs and Parks Association Annual Public Service Award. So I think that's great recognition, and congratulations to Dave Bush for that recognition, and for Tom Taberski for submitting Dave for that recognition. Simpac, briefly, you asked the question, which was part of my report, but their executive director search is going well. And they've identified some good candidates and are in the final stretch. Aging and Disability Commission had their Sensory Santa event, which was highly successful with over 123 participants who attended that event at the Simsbury Public Library. And the families that Mark mentioned, the 110 children adopted by the holiday program this year were adopted by 75 families here in Simsbury. The only thing I want to mention that on public safety additionally was to thank the fire department and the first responders who tackled that very difficult fire at 730 Hot Meadow Street in December, and nothing on Fair End.
Okay.
Oh, I'm from sustainability, and so appreciate the presentation earlier and encourage us to support that. I think it adds to resiliency for individual homeowners. If there's a power outage or otherwise, it's a good thing, as well as being maybe a little bit more efficient at home. Recycling on that side, a new provider in town at the Simsbury Stop and Shop called Clynk, C-L-Y-N-K. It's probably a search engine optimization thing for naming. Get a couple of free green bags when they're there if you want. And you can do it faster for the bottle deposits. The only thing I find more annoying than feeding the individual bottles in is my 6-year-old and 12-year-old fighting over it so that they can get the money from the thing. This solves the problem. You bag it at home, put your QR code on it and scan it at the bag thing, and it goes in and you get your money later. So I think it's a good thing to encourage others to take advantage of the deposits that they're already paying, but also encourage recycling in town. That's all from me.
Okay, so now so we have to decide with the consent agenda. So I'm gonna throw out a few that I have, and if people wanna add to that. I have for selectmen action, item B, actually I'm gonna do Danny Sousa, item C, cause he went through personnel subcommittee. Item F with a thank you to Valley Community, item G with a thank you to Carolyn Keith McLean Shenneman. Item H with a thank you to the Friends of Simsbury Farms. And actually, I'm asking if we wanna put in the approval for the alcohol waiver for Eno, which is pretty much similar to what we did for the class of 81 at the Apple Barn to the consent agenda. I'm open to discussion on that.
I'm fine with it.
Oh, and the appointments and resignations, A and B.
I'll move selectmen actions items B, C, F, G, H, and I, and appointments and resignations A and B into the consent agenda.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Point of question though, if I was going to recuse myself from voting on I, since it is a conflict of interest, does that recuse me from voting?
Did you recuse yourself when we voted on that?
He did.
I think
Okay, so just
But I mean,
you can recuse yourself.
I
It's up
recuse
to you.
myself from the
Everything
vote
but
on
that one,
I.
yeah.
Abstains, yeah.
Or abstain.
As a just a point of personal preference, you don't gain monetarily from it's a
I do
non-profit
not.
organization.
I do
So
not.
I think in full disclosure that you're a member, I think is fair enough, so you can either do what you want and abstain or.
Okay,
Thank you.
so all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So it's a 6, everybody. Okay, so I'm trying to get to the fiscal, but I have a couple of roadblocks here. I'd like to so the first item is authorizing the town manager to execute the Power Smart Memorandum of Understanding. I asked a few questions. I think everybody was in agreement to do that. So I can ask for a motion effective January 13, 2025 to authorize town manager Mark Nelson to execute the Power Smart MOU, which is included as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next item is, okay, so we're getting into the Simsbury Farms Golf Course Aquatic. So Tom, do you wanna try to come up here and try to make this painless and
I will make it as
fairly
quick as you want.
quick? Well, I just wanna, I feel these guys have been sitting here for almost 2 hours.
I appreciate everybody's time and the opportunity. As you know, annually, the fee process for the day camps, aquatics, and golf at Simsbury Farms, the Culture Parks and Recreation Department annually reviews the staff recommendation in December. And then we bring to your board in January typically those fee recommendations and you know, typically you review, I reviewed it with the town manager. And then we open up for camp registration. Now, we have made some increases this year. On the aquatics and campsite, it's primarily due to the minimum wage, 4.4% increase again for this coming year. That is, you know, we employ roughly about 80 to 90 seasonal kids each year, so it's a significant amount of expenses that we incur. And the way the revenue fund is set up, we're supposed to cover our expenses and we have to raise fees to do that. The one thing I want to call your attention to this year is our season pass proposal. We'd like to lower the cost of the season pass by $10. That's the pre-sale price, pre-season price. The repos going down $175 to $165. Obviously, you know, we've had some up and down years with weather recently, and the season pass sales insulate us against bad weather. You know, we can sell a lot of those season passes where to the level we used to. It does guarantee revenue on those cooler, wet summers. I call attention to summer '23, where it pretty much rained every weekend from July to October. So, and we lost a lot of our walk-up emissions that year. So, we do realize that these fee increases are burdensome for the residents. We think, you know, being able to take it, even showing an effort to take $10 off is worthwhile. And to spur those season pass sales, we've kind of come up with a program that we think will generate additional sales. We're gonna limit, we're gonna let our season pass holders access the pool at 1 o'clock only, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock before it opens up to the general public. That alone gets you your prime spot on the deck, so that helps you beat the general crowd. If you've had kids at the pool recently, you've noticed that we've done inflatables and foam parties and things like that to try to attract people to the pool. Those items will continue to be free for pass holders, but for non-pass holders, we'll charge $2 for a wristband. Season pass families can reserve the upper pool deck for a birthday party once per summer, per availability. Season pass holders can also purchase snack bucks for the pool, so they can go cashless. They can send their kids in up to the snack bar without a credit card or whatever if they have money on their account. The season pass holders, we're gonna continue the tradition of giving season pass holders a $10 discount on swim lessons as well. That'll stay as we go. Any questions on the season pass or aquatic fees or day camp fees?
I do not.
I know I always ask this question, but any thought of giving residents a cheaper rate?
We'd love to. We'd love to, but unfortunately, the way the fund is set up, we don't have the ability to do that. The Simsbury Farms Revenue Fund covers employee salaries, benefits, and covers all the utilities. Just obviously the seasonal staff, materials used to teach us swim lesson, first aid materials, things like that. It's just the way those expenses are set up, we could not possibly offer a bigger discount than we do now. I would love to, the more people up there is the better. We'd rather have every resident be able to take advantage of the pool up there. It's to capacity every day. It's just.
Could we increase the out of town rate?
We actually kept that. We didn't offer a discount for non-resident pass holders. We kept, actually, I think we might have even gone up a little bit. We did not lower that. Those passes have fallen off significantly in the last few years as we've actually raised that rate significantly. If you look back on your spreadsheet, you can look at the last 4 or 5 years, we went up significantly and we've seen those numbers go down.
Does social services work with any families who might have?
They do, yeah,
difficulty with that?
they've already been getting calls, we've started advertising day camp registration, and they've already been getting calls about financial assistance for the summer programs. They've also purchased pool passes for some families in need as well, over the last couple of years, and what they do is they basically reimburse the revenue, the Simsbury Farms Fund for that, for the price of that pass or program. Great.
So are we talking about the golf?
Not yet.
Yeah, I was just.
Or we're just on aquatics?
Just on aquatics and day camp at this point.
Aquatics is over. We're done with aquatics?
Unless you guys have any other questions.
I'm sorry.
He's ready to be done.
So,
Okay.
no, I have a question,
Okay.
unfortunately. Well, I guess it's a different time for it. It's just the camp stuff to do, which I love the camp, but we never figured out the water feature. But I guess that's more a budget question.
It is.
As we get there.
The plan at this point is to use Memorial Pool again this year for that, and we will be offering not only the camp stuff to do swimming lessons there, our camp use of the pool during the camp day. We offer an after camp swim lesson. We also offer after work swim lessons for working parents. We also offer a special needs program called Swim Possible that we started there last year. The wading pool is also there during the day. The continuing education department uses the pool for
It's
their
okay,
program.
as long as you have a plan for an aquatic feature, that's really where I was
I mean, our as you know, our hope is that a splash pad will eventually take the place of that pool.
Then I'm all set.
Okay,
So on the golf side, we do have operating costs that have gone up. So we're kind of doing a two-phase approach this year that I wanna call your attention to. We're asking for permission to raise green fees $2, but we also wanna institute what we're calling a facility improvement surcharge. This is very similar to the equipment surcharge that this board approved in 2016. That equipment surcharge goes directly to the cost of replacing machinery and equipment at the golf course, mowers, tractors, that kind of thing. This new fee surcharge that we're doing would operate the same way. We would bank the money from the revenues and only use it for, it would be basically earmarked for facility improvements at the golf course and, I'm sorry, at the restaurant and clubhouse facility, including the patio. We have, that building was built in 2002. Most of the kitchen equipment at that is the original, it's getting older. The equipment, that building, when it was originally designed, was more spacious than what ultimately got built due to budget cuts during the process. What we found is that our operating vendors have a very difficult time working in that kitchen and also serving the larger outings we have, up to 180 people. You can't possibly keep the restaurant open and serve a banquet in the tent at the same time. We've had a committee working on a long-term vision, an improvement plan for the clubhouse. I think ideally the goal would be to bring the gathering space for those outings to attach it to the restaurant in an indoor facility that would allow us to keep it open year round. It would make it more attractive to whoever our food service operator is. It would make it more attractive for community events up there. It would also have some efficiencies with the kitchen space and you know, if you have an event where in the tent now, if it's raining, you gotta come inside to use the restroom or transfer food from the kitchen out to the tent. There's a lot of efficiencies that would take place, but it would also modernize that kitchen and the mechanicals on that side of the building. We envision this, if we have the average rounds that we're doing right now at the $2 per 9 and $4 for 18, it would generate about $110,000 per year. Before we can do any large scale improvements, we would probably be banking those revenues, assuming they come in at the level they are now for 3 or 4 years. But during that time, we would refine the design process, you know, and get ready to go out to bid, sharpen the numbers with construction estimates and that kind of thing. But that's the big change for this year, is that $2 and $4 surcharge, facility improvement surcharge. The $2 on green fees is pretty much in line with contractual costs, agricultural costs of doing business at the golf course.
So for clarification, there's this clubhouse improvement surcharge has no bearing on the Apple Bar facility.
No.
It's only the clubhouse restaurant.
Correct. That building.
the building.
Right, no,
That
the
building.
pro shop.
Yep.
Yeah, and just so for transparency, Heather and I were on that committee, we weighed in as golfers and not as Board of Selectmen members. There's no guarantee as what's gonna happen yet, there's no architectural plans, it's just the proposal to renovate and improve the experience for the golfers up there to be in line with other public courses like Black Ledge and Rock Ledge, things like that. So
food service at the, I'd have to interrupt, the food service at the golf course in a modern golf course is important. It's a complement to what the product is on the course. We do upwards around 30 outings a year right now. It generates over $100,000 in revenue for the golf course. If we were not to have a viable food service operation up there, obviously that's a significant, it's about 10% of our revenue at this point. Those events up at the golf course, a lot of those events are charity events or are fundraising events for local organizations. The football, high school football team, the youth hockey, the fire department, those kind of groups, they use that course and the meeting space up there as a fundraiser for the work that they do in town as well. That restaurant, if you've been in it, is outdated. It gives you that 1980s, early 90s vibe. It's not an attractive space at this point.
We are gonna be, our current vendor, their contract runs out at the end of this current 2025 golf season. It's very likely we'll be going out to bid. We wanna be able to have something in place to it's good in the hospitality, I mean, Steve, you know this better than anybody, the hospitality industry right now is very challenging. It's a 6-month operation at best up there during the golf season for the food service. We wanna have something in place, a vision, a plan in place to make that our operation as attractive as possible to a vendor, whether it's a current vendor or another vendor. We right now the model is we collect a monthly rent, a quarterly rent from our current provider. The climate that we're in, who knows where that's gonna end up. I think we're gonna have to work really hard, so we wanna put ourselves in the best position to get the best service we can for our patrons up there and the community in general.
Go ahead, I
Okay.
do wanna discuss it at some point, but.
The one thing I wanted to just throw in there too, it doesn't just mean the restaurant, it also might shrink some of the locker room space
Oh, you
that
can think
around
in the
because
building,
there's
yeah,
a lot
there's-
of excess
yep.
space up there.
Yep, there is.
And the one question that I reached out to Tom and asked was if Mark, John and Karen, the golf pros, had weighed in to say that it's not gonna impact the golf attendance, that most golfers should welcome this because they wanna see the improvements in.
Yeah, Mark and Karen have sat in on the meetings, I believe they're in not only what they've said in the meetings but in private conversations with them that I've had, they are supportive of the concept. It does, they conduct a survey of other courses for their fees, so we always benchmark ourselves against everybody else, comparing our product and their product plus the fee structure. Where we've been in the middle of the pack, lower to middle side of the pack of municipal courses, this fee increase will now put us into probably the upper third, very, very comparable to Keeney's prices in Windsor. So we are making asking a little bit more of our patrons. The plan is to put communications in place at the pro shop for the start of the season that explains why there's a surcharge, why the fees have gone up, what they're gonna be getting for their money, an estimated timeline of what that might look like. So they know that this isn't, we're not pocketing, the town's not pocketing the money, this is going, that those extra $4 they're gonna pay for an 18-hole round are going back into the facility. They've seen, I think our season passes have gone up over the years because they've seen the product improve. They know that the town's putting money back into the course, they've seen the improvements, they've seen it from the staff and from a mechanical standpoint. So I don't suspect that we're gonna get, from the conversations we've had, that we're gonna get a lot of pushback about it, realizing that we're asking for a fee increase and they're getting hit not only at the golf course, they're getting hit at the grocery store, understood.
Alright, thank you. Any other questions?
I'm not an expert enough on it, but like a permanent caterer list for events there instead of trying to find a permanent resident restaurant. It doesn't solve the problem of having a daily food service operation. I mean, I would assume, I think it's easy for me to say, I guess it's transparent for me to say our food service operator does a significant amount of their revenue comes from the golf outings, which helps support the day-to-day operation up there. If you're asking about doing two separate operations, a daily operation versus then bringing somebody in for the outings, they wouldn't have necessarily access to the kitchen, everything would have to be brought in from off-site. And I think our food service operation becomes a lot less attractive to someone who's only doing the daily versus having access to the larger events throughout the year.
Do you see an increase in the rate that you charge? Because we're basically giving someone a brand new kitchen for for the same rate in which they're currently paying, or you see that built into the.
It wouldn't be for ideally it's not gonna be overnight, it's gonna be 3 to 6 years down the road potentially. I think what we'd be looking for in a new vendor, we're making roughly about $40,000 this year in revenue from our contract in year 5 of their contract. That contract was negotiated prior to really the fall of the COVID effect on the hospitality industry. It's become a lot harder to find labor, supply lines have become more scarce and prices have gone up. And again, the realistic part of our operation is our golf season is late March, early April to the end of October, and then you really fall off after that. So to try to find
a vendor who's willing to partner with us on a 5 or 6 month operation. I mean, I think ideally we're looking for someone who might have connections in town or another business where they could shift staff around and that kind of thing. The model we're using right now is tough, and they've had a lot of challenges. Did I answer your question? I might have started going off on a tangent.
I mean, I understand what you're trying to, I mean, it definitely sounds.
Until we put it out for RFP, I don't know what we're gonna, if there's gonna be a decrease or an increase in rent. I think it's gonna be harder to collect the rent, harder to attract that rent that we have now. I think another model we might wanna look at is a commission model on revenues or something like that.
So I think it's important, like, cause I know another golf courses don't allow weekend tournaments, so maybe they only do Monday tournaments. So to have another facility that could help the golfers or help with charity events would be great, it'd be good.
So if I could talk on this for a minute. This first started in the 1990s where we wanted to have food service up at the farms. And our first RFP, there was 0 bids. On our second RFP, there were 0 bids. We have continually tried to support this model, and we continue to try and come up with creative solutions to have the pub style atmosphere for the golfers. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily know what the answer is, but there's not, to me, a lot of golfers going, wow, I wish there was a wedding here today. That is contradictory. I know that the outings are a great source of revenue, and I'll speak to that in 1 second. But to start going after the private sector for weddings and stuff, which was mentioned in the, not prospectus, but whatever was circulating. I think we keep trying to figure out a way to subsidize a snack bar. I know the existing snack bar uses food trucks, maybe that's more the answer. Maybe a fee. Right now, if, let's say you go to Pastel's Catering, it's been in town for decades. You can't have them be your caterer at Simsbury Farms, even though the town owns the tent. Because that is another perk. We try and make it so that somebody will be profitable with a 6-month operation is hard. If we make this a 12-month operation, which was also referenced, now it wasn't there that potentially it could be 12 months. Then we have to do more as far as grounds, maintaining the grounds with salt and plowing and so on and so forth to move it that way. We keep moving this way, and I just have a concern that, banking the money without a black and white vision is just continually trying to throw money towards this. The outings are a component that is necessary for a golf course. To have it limited to one person be the vendor is not a necessity. It could be that different caterers pay a fee to cater on the course, similar to how Granby does Holcomb Farm. We have a beautiful facility up there. The snack bar is nice, but honestly, the Apple Barn is an incredibly nice historic building on the premises. And we barely rent it out because, to be frank, if you're talking about this looking like the 1980s, the Apple Barn looks like the 1930s. Nobody wants to rent it. I think part of the longer range that I would embrace more heartedly would be something that comes up with a hybrid, where we have the outing support the golf carts, but we also figure out how to facilitate a pub style restaurant that is right sized. We keep saying, oh, maybe if it's bigger it'll work. And I just don't think that's the answer, that to make it bigger, now it's gonna work all of a sudden. And it is, I love that Simsbury Farms pretty much takes care of itself. But another concern that was highlighted was that we're losing golfers to other golf courses. And it's basic economics, you raise the price, you get less demand. And we're talking about becoming one of the upper third as far as costs of municipally owned golf courses. And it's just a concern, where is that magic number? And it's not that I don't want to support Simsbury Farms, because I wholeheartedly do, and I hope we somehow get the Apple Barn involved in this eventually as a potential site for local vendors to be able to utilize. But as it is, without a black and white proposal, it's literally double the fees that were going up for the rest of the increase. And I'll be happy to answer questions, but I have my concerns, and to be frank, the industry itself, I know I have business in it, but alcohol consumption is down across the board 12%. Who knows what the reason is?
Dry
It's not-
January.
No, it's not dry January. Those are the 2024 figures.
Right.
So people are
People aren't
drinking
going,
less.
yeah. Well,
Not in my house.
At the
They're going,
golf courses.
they're drinking more at home. They're
But
not
that's
going
my
out,
point.
yeah.
It makes it harder
Since
to have
COVID.
a positive cash flow business, whether it's on a golf course or Main Street Town Center. And you know, it's just gonna be hard to get multiple RFPs. Last time, how many people did we have that? How many?
I believe it was 7.
Well, you know, it's not gonna be completed unless the vision is completed for the next RFP round either, as far as a concrete proposal for them.
Yeah, I mean, we anticipate finishing this work by, I would say April, late April, I think was our goal to finish.
Of a build out?
No,
No,
the
that's
RFP,
the
the RFP, vision plan, long-term plan. The RFP would go out in the fall after September 1st.
So what is it now? It's just rent, or do they have a revenue share? What is it?
No, it's just rent at this point.
Well, we provide all the equipment,
Just asking,
all the stuff. No, I'm just saying what we give them.
I do want, you made one point that we're losing golfers to other courses. Since 2019, we've gone from 29,000, just a hair under 30,000 rounds to 45 and change this past year. We've been picking up golfers, you know, significantly so every year.
That was one of the things I got as part of the packet, that one of the concerns was we were losing golfers to other courses.
The potential is there's the Blue Fox course in Avon was recently sold
Yeah.
to a developer.
That's going to be private.
So he's gonna, the talk is that course is gonna turn into he's gonna enhance the event space there and make it attractive to outings. Our point was, you know, we're doing over $100,000 in outings now, we wanna protect that. You know, I don't think that we're not looking to attract a ton more because we wanna still make our course available to the regulars. But it's important to note that outings are a significant portion of our revenue.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page with you. It was not doing away with outings. It was the level playing fields for other vendors to be able to utilize the facilities up there.
I mean, we would love to have a look, again, the RFP was open to everybody, we had 5 local vendors go through the RFP process with us last time. We would love to have some of those people again. But it comes with a price, we do have to protect the day-to-day operation, you know, to have a food, golfers expect to be able to buy a sandwich after the round or during the round, or you know, sometimes a beer on the course or a beer after the round. We have a beautiful patio up there. It's an amenity that should be taken advantage of more often. We're not looking to take someone else's business away. I would surmise that those golfers who come, if they're coming from out of town and they stop in they're playing a day round at our course and having lunch there, they might be stopping for a refreshment or a snack after at, you know, the Maple Tree or Antonio's or
Well, they can
Soma.
go to the
Or
plant store even. I don't care that
anything
it's
that happens at Simsbury
hospitality.
Farms that's good for the town in general because it's bringing people to town. There's no easy way to get to West Simsbury, so they're coming through the center of town or coming off of Route 10 to get there. So they're going by the gas station, the grocery store, the restaurants. For us to be able to maintain the current level of play that we have and maybe add a few more, that benefits the town, you know, and the golfers are paying for that. But it benefits everybody else who's not paying those fees.
No, I love as I said, the model of Simsbury Farms is an anomaly in as much as you have a self-contained budget.
One more question on the rates that you used to set, because you had the minimum wage increase, but there's also the Connecticut paid leave requirement now. Are our temporary summer workers able to take advantage of that, and do we have to budget to backfill that? I'm not smart enough to know, I just know that it's happening.
No, it's a good question. We had a brief talk on it with HR a couple of weeks ago. I think there's a lot of, I know with the Connecticut Rec and Park Association that I'm a member of, there's a lot of vagueness in the guidance we've gotten from typical, right?
Sure.
That we've gotten from the Department of Labor, so they're trying to answer those questions as far as how it's gonna affect seasonal and part-time workers.
Okay.
So.
Alright, thank you.
Alright, so with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion effective January 13, 2025 to approve the Culture, Parks and Recreation Department's 2025 fee schedule for the Simsbury Farms Golf Course, aquatics facilities, and day camp programs as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say
Still-
nay, whatever, nay,
No,
nay, aye.
different.
And there's nobody sustained, so we have a 5-1 on that, so thanks, Tom. Okay, now everybody that's been waiting here. So, the next item on the agenda, and I'm gonna, is to talk about and potentially approve the purchase of the 2 Farms Village Road, Simsbury. And I'm gonna just frame a couple things here. We have Matt Curtis here, we have Katie Priscilla here from the BOE. We have Jeff Tyndall, our Board of Ed Chair, who's invited and have sat here for 2 hours and 15 minutes. We have our Board of Finance Chair, Lisa Hebner. We have Board of Finance member Art Wallace. We lost a Board of Finance member, and we have Jessica.
He just left, we didn't.
And we have Jessica Parise from the Board of Ed, and we also have our town attorney here. So we have a full house of people. I don't know who the gentleman is in the back row, so I can't say who he is.
This is Chris Petrone, he just started a month ago as our project administrator.
I saw his name. Oh, hi, and you're having such a good time here, aren't you?
This is purely for entertainment value.
We try our best.
Really having a good time here. So I just wanna give a little background. I'm gonna turn it over to Mark. We've had multiple executive sessions on this. We've discussed it at the tri-board. The Board of Ed, Matt, Katie, Amy have put together a proposal to show a 3-year phase-in of this special ed project in a way to save money, given the escalating costs to everybody, but especially to us. And so we have that's phase 1, that's kind of part 1, right? I forgot what part 2 was, but part 3 is actually the purchase of the building, which is what we're waiting to see to balance this whole thing out, because it is a capital expenditure on the town. I have questions, I'm saving them, but I would like to turn this over to Mark and Matt, whoever wants to discuss this and walk us through what you wanna walk us through.
Thanks, Chair, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for waiting, and I won't go through all of the details because I'm gonna assume a lot of familiarity at this point, but let me just stop for a minute at the beginning and give you a little bit of perspective on this. The work of staff, both at the BOE side and on the municipal side, started really in earnest back in July and August. It was at that point that we knew we had, and even earlier, serious fiscal impact problems with special education costs rising dramatically. And so the issue was very clear to everybody on the staff. What are we gonna do about it? And we very quickly came to this sort of conclusion that if we could find the appropriate space, building out the program made sense. Probably another 90 days of due diligence was conducted. We briefed the board in midsummer. The board recommended that we go out and look at 3, 4, even 5 other parcels. And so we did that. We extended our due diligence. I think we visited 4 or 5 properties. I know I did 3 and the Board of Ed did 3 or 4. Tom Roy was also involved in this early on. From the very beginning, this particular property stood out because it's next to the high school. And you're gonna hear that all night long, but it really is an economy of scale. It's an efficiency that the other properties that were for sale just didn't have. There were other structural and renovation problems with the other parcels that were considered. So I just wanna check the box for board members that staff did a really good job, I think, at your urging, quite frankly, at looking at different locations. So the location aside, and I'll let Matt speak to the programmatic part of this. We do have a really good fiscal analysis of this that finance did, that you've seen before, twice in executive session and once publicly, that pegs the total cost at about $1.6 million. For tonight's discussion, I'm gonna frame it as really 2 phases at this point. The first one is the build out that would be done if this is approved by the current owner. And phase 2 would be the further renovations that the town would undertake post closing. So one of the things that we did in negotiating with the current owner is we looked at two components. One was the price of the building, and the other was there some amount of work in terms of the retrofit, the rehab that they could do prior to closing? And would that save the town and taxpayers money if we made that work a condition of sale? Right, so what you've got, and I won't go through the whole memo, is a proposed purchase price of $625,000. Let's talk about that for a minute. We have an appraisal, an independent appraisal that was commissioned by the town back in August or September for $712,000. The $625,000 we think is a very fair price. The negotiations started with us more than $250,000 apart. We were urged by this board and by our colleagues on the Board of Finance to come up with an innovative spend to save solution. You heard that term used earlier in the evening, but it's really true. It's not something that we should, have any skepticism about. Sometimes you have to spend money to save money. And getting ahead of myself, I'll just say, as I've said before, if we don't do something like this, we can expect dramatic increases to special ed costs that will be simply not sustainable here in town for our taxpayers. So phase one includes the current owner doing build out to our specifications. That is a estimated cost not to exceed $372,203.25. And so you're being asked to approve the purchase of the property subject to a number of conditions in the total amount not to exceed $997,203.25. Lastly, talk about a couple of the conditions and so forth. Obviously, the work that would need to be done prior to closing is in your packets. That's something that Town Engineer Tom Roy and I have worked with the current owner to agree to. The further approval of the Board of Finance would be needed, and the Board of Finance has indicated they would hold the public hearing. So to summarize, you have really some good collaboration going on in the building between the boards of education, this board, and the Board of Finance. I haven't seen anything like it since I've been here, and that's been a year, so I just wanna thank everybody who's been involved in this. It's been a lot of work. It's taken a little bit of time, but I think it was worth it for all of us to do the analysis that we did, that we could all come together tonight and hopefully approve this. And take questions, and I know Matt wants to say a few words, but as I said before, if not this, then what? And also, I think that, just throw it out there, we're not getting help. The cavalry isn't coming over the hill from the state of Connecticut. Our taxpayers have faced an increasing tax burden for 2 years back to back. And it's just, we cannot continue to raise taxes. And we're being challenged both on the BOE side and on the municipal side to cut. And you really can't cut your way to sustainability. We all know that. You've got to right-size government. You've got to look for innovation. You've got to consider things that people haven't thought of before. And most important, you've got to make the tough decisions when there's opposition that comes from quarters that, they don't wanna spend more money, and I get it. And the last thing you wanna do is add $1 million to our budget. But the fact of the matter is that we're gonna have 5 times that added to our budget if we don't act. So I'm gonna take any questions, but I'll ask Matt, who's worked on this very hard with us, and Katie, Jeff, everybody from the Board of Ed side, if you wanna talk about the programmatic piece of this, cause that's above my pay grade, but it sounds fascinating, but anything you wanna add?
No, I appreciate everybody's time and your consideration of this. It's a pretty important topic to us. I know we've had opportunities to talk through the concept before, but I would just say, the challenges continue to mount. I mean, we just found, we're informed at the beginning of last week, as we've talked about our own students' needs, rising in our district, they have across the state as well, which we've talked about. So we were just notified that our excess cost reimbursement for the current year, and these are the type of students that we're talking about, 4.5 times per pupil expenditure that are eligible for reimbursement will be cut by 10%. So that's a $400,000 response we need to find right now for a similar type of population that we've talked about. So, Mark, you referenced costs increasing over time. We have roughly about 40 to 43 students, give or take a few students over the period of the last 3 years that are educated in specialized programs and outside schools beyond Simsbury Public Schools. We're working hard to improve our programming internally to contain that number, but that cost increased at a minimum of 10% from a tuition standpoint year over year. So we feel that, in terms of cost containment, a project like this will do two things. It'll help bring some students back potentially, provides us an opportunity to meet the needs of surrounding communities as well, and offer a tuition-based program for them. Really interesting, obviously this concept received some media attention. And as a result of that, we received inquiries already from surrounding communities about, do we have seats available? There is really a need. We've established a program in Farmington Valley Transition Academy already that's very successful on a similar model. So while we have a lot of work to do, we feel confident that this is an effective strategy. All respect to Ms. Coe, it's a little more than a field of dreams, but I'm okay with that.
Matt, if I can just ask a question, because of all of our conversations, I think the one thing that kind of jumped out at me, and I think it would be helpful for everybody to hear it, is the staffing and your ability to build out, recruit and retain the employees that you need to make it work in phase 2 and beyond. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
You wanna speak a little bit to that?
Kate?
Yeah, so I think the important thing is to really kind of build the program slow and steady. Because really the priority with a program like this is to make it a community, to make it a home for the students. And in order to do that, we can use current staffing and then really look to build that out into years 2 and 3 by adding the staffing in slow, measured by classroom needs, in order to do it both in a fiscally responsible way, but also in a way where we are able to grow that community for our students and really make it a home base and an educational center for students in their own community.
Thanks. And then the other thing, last question for me, is very important if you could talk about the current conditions, because I know I've had a couple of conversations and what are the current conditions that you would be able to comment on at this point, right? And then how long is the useful life of the modulars? I mean, what's the situation there?
They're in pretty tough shape, well beyond kind of their initial usable life. We've invested in some new rooftop units. We've had significant heating challenges this winter in trying to respond to that, so we've had to move some office staff out of there. It's not something that we would want to invest certainly more money into trying to repair. I think that's a losing battle. And what we would try to do with this concept, because we utilize 3 to 4 rooms for our Pathways program, is the remaining individuals that are in there, we would look to find in-house space.
Right.
And would not need to reinvest in those modulars, which, as you know, with the recent approval of the Terrafil, I mean, it was $900,000 for those modular units. So
Thanks. I'll throw it back to you, Chair, and we'll take any questions.
I'd like to say.
Thank you very much.
If I know the full Board of Finance hasn't voted on this yet, we did talk about it at the tri-board. Do you wanna weigh in at all? Like, I know you had a work group with the numbers, a member of them is here.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Art, but one of the things the Board of Finance is obviously paying close attention to is increased costs and how can we mitigate some of those costs. But we're also residents of this community and we don't wanna do so in a way that harms children. And the beauty of this solution is it mitigates costs and provides better education to not only students in our town, but also the community around us. So from conceptual, it makes a lot of sense from the financial side. I always think about things, well, what if we're wrong, right? What if it's a disaster? And the finances don't work out. Well, now we've got a building contiguous to the high school. that could be used for other options, or we could sell it. You could envision moving the Board of Ed there at some point, and suddenly you've got room for the police in this building. But for right now, it makes sense to invest in something that's gonna have a revenue stream, that's gonna improve the lives of our children and our neighboring children. I'm gonna let we have two actuaries on our board, and we created a subcommittee of our actuaries, and we tasked them to really probe the finance director, who's excellent and did an excellent analysis. But we said, go ahead and probe the assumptions, probe the what ifs, evaluate what if things go wrong, and tell us, does this still make sense? And then our board has had a chance to review, but I can't speak for them because at this point, we'll speak at the public hearing. But I will let the actuaries speak too, because those were public.
And you didn't need to be an actuary to do this analysis. But I guess a couple of things. First of all, I think it's to me, it's sort of maybe more as a resident, it's an interesting way for us to monetize what is a really strong asset in our community, which is our education system, right? So for us to be able to sort of rent part of this out in a thoughtful way, I think is a really interesting thing for us to raise revenue. A key statistic that stuck in my head was I think the payback period, if we're still at about 1.6, is about 5 to 6 years of payback. I don't think there's too many investments that you can think of that you're gonna get a payback that quickly and then have it actually be positive from that point forward. And then I think to Lisa's point, it's an asset that we're buying. So at the end of the day, what the worst thing that happens is we're gonna own this asset and it's contiguous to, another parcel of land, right, that we own as well. So it felt like as we went through the analysis, the biggest risk I saw, notwithstanding normal risks of if the budget was wrong for some reason and some of the things that had to happen, was can we get the number of students into the building, right? Because if we're at half capacity or something, I think that would be an issue. But I think as the superintendent already indicated, and probably isn't a surprise to anyone given the status of our education system, I'm gonna guess we're gonna get oversubscribed to this, more likely than undersubscribed.
So I'm gonna take privilege as chair to ask
Please
a
do.
few questions.
Yep.
So we've heard from the Board of Ed perspective, the plan, we've heard from the Board of Finance side, and we believe those pieces. Now we're basically left with making sure that we're getting a good and fair price to purchase the building, which is really what's on the agenda tonight. I had asked to just include the whole thing tonight so we can all just talk about it and put it all together. We have not, all of us, this is the first time that we're talking about the actual deal as a board, so I have questions, I'm sure others have questions. The big question before I get into little questions is really for Mark as the professional of the community. Is this a good deal for this building? We had asked at times, can we buy just the building and then do the improvements ourselves so that we're not investing more than we need to upfront? And this is what's come back, is this kind of combined hybrid vision. And so I'm gonna put that question to you seriously, to put you on the hook, kind of, is this a deal that we could be proud of going forward?
The answer is yes, and it's a definite yes, notwithstanding my losing my voice, for which I apologize. But I will tell you that the appraisal was a very good appraisal, 712. The purchase price of 635, 80 or 90 grand less than that, is certainly a favorable to the appraisal. The requirement that the owner do some of the rehab work not to exceed $372,000 is almost assured to save the town and taxpayers some money, only because they can do it cheaper than we can. Some of the things that needed to be done were within their ability to get contractors to do more quickly and more cost effectively. So, value engineering that number may save us, back of the envelope another 50,000, roughly 60 maybe. Plus the 80, you're 140,000 to the good. I think to the finance board chair's comment, it's an asset. So let's say they didn't do the work for 372 and you're paying 997. The original ask when the property was first listed and the board first took this up a few years ago, I think was 990 or thereabouts. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, first appraisal was just under $1 million.
So that was then, and I'm not saying it's a valid price now, it isn't. But it's one of those rare cases in government where it's cheaper now, not more expensive. everything else we delay, activities or actions or choices on tend to rise in prices. But this is a much better deal for the town than it would have been had you done it 3 years ago. So the decision not to do it then certainly looks good. And I think, we don't have a crystal ball, but if we did, and we are all sitting here 3 or 4 years from now, I'm certainly personally, based on my experience, long experience, you're gonna be very happy that you did this. So yes, I think it's important. It's probably the biggest single cost mitigating factor that I could bring to you at this point.
So I'm still taking, I think everyone will have some of these questions. So there's an additional $600,000 of work that's not gonna be done by them. I don't know what that is. Is that documented somewhere? What is included in that $600,000 of work?
The original work up by the finance team was, I think, just under 1.6 million.
Right.
That included everything that was necessary to get to what was then phase 3.
Okay.
I'm not sure that 600 would could be a little less based on what we've negotiated here, but again, you've got a year before that happens and prices are going up. But the total of roughly 1.6 million has not increased since we first discussed it with this board.
Okay, and then two other questions that we had originally talked about was an elevator and security for the building, and I don't see them in this plan, and I'm not sure, is that going to be part of the 600,000 or are they no longer needed? Where is that plan?
I can answer that. The plan is to put in a lift system, which would be ADA compliant. It would not be a traditional elevator like we have here in the building, but it would suffice that if somebody had mobility issues, it would access all the necessary levels. And the security issues I have not been part of what that would look like.
So that could be an additional cost to make sure we have like a security vestibule like we have at all the schools.
Like access control.
Yeah,
Fobbing and
Pardon me?
like fobs on the doors.
And just who can come into the building,
Yeah.
go through one entrance, one exit, right? Because it's a school, I mean, after we all know, is that in the plans somewhere? It's something I haven't seen. We brought that up before, so.
I have not worked on that. I think Kyle would probably pick up the ball on that, Kyle from the Board of Ed. But I think, in terms of total dollar value, that's, if it's just a matter of getting the door set up with access fobs, that's not insurmountable in terms of the dollar value.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, and this is for the Board of Ed, and you probably know this coming, we know that, I don't remember what you guys got money, $500,000 earlier this year that was unexpected, went into the non-lapsing fund. Can somebody remind me what that was for? You guys,
So that was dollars that weren't expended in the operating budget.
okay,
And by legislatively you're allowed to keep up to 2% of your total operating costs in a non-lapsing account to utilize for emergencies or other needs or whatever it may be. When we created that fund, I don't know, it was probably like 10 years ago or so, the thought was to try to respond to unexpected expenditures in special education was one of the main reasons why we created it.
so would some of that money be allocated for this capital project to help us out? So it's not just, is that an
I think that's up.
deal that you guys could?
I think that's certainly up for conversation. I know that Lisa and the Board of Finance are the final authority on
The money.
the money. I would certainly say we're open to that dialogue. I mean, we have a bit of competing
Yeah.
use for that fund right now with relative to what came up last week. And I think ultimately that would be a Board of Finance. Which way do we wanna meet both those needs, but absolutely willing to engage in the conversation.
Okay, and another question for Board of Finance. We've all talked about, do we do this, why aren't we doing this mid-year, why aren't we doing this as part of the budget? Why don't we do the 7/12 and then the build out as part of the budget? It's right now we're just talking about doing this piece. And I just have concerns, and everybody can weigh in, is, we're looking at our capital and CNR expenditures for '26, and is this going to impact us doing key needs for the town that we've already or are prioritizing? If we have enough in reserves or other ways to spend it, will this not limit what we're planning to do for capital? That's a question for maybe you, I don't know.
I'll take the first pass at that. I think I can speak very proudly for the work the team has done thus far on next year's budget. Well under Board of Finance guidance on CIP, and I wanna thank Matt and his team for this as well, and the Board of Ed, because this was a collaborative, got together and worked it out. And so the amount that we're coming to boards for approval from is quite low. On CNR, which is in your packet as a communication for discussion 2 weeks from now, but the preview is it's flat to last year. That may be a little bit of a challenge, but that's the ask coming out of the town manager's budget. I think the answer to your question is that we've left space so that question shouldn't derail the approval. Right, so in a way, we are doing it in the context of the budget, even though we're doing it separately. We kind of have seen the budget. You've got the capital and CNR proposal a couple of weeks early as a communication, and I'm happy to take some questions on that. But really, it was a great collaborative effort. We knew we had to keep bonding very low. And we're looking forward to debt service costs dropping at some point. That's why you do that. So hopefully the decisions we're making now will have a positive impact in soon.
Okay, and then just to note, the next step, if we pass this, it will go to a public hearing at the Board of Finance. And you guys will be the basically ultimate decision makers at that junction. So I'm gonna stop asking my questions. I hope they were questions other people had. But see if anybody has other questions.
Thanks. Diana.
Just a quick question, and you may or may not be able to answer it, but I mean, we know that we see the number of special education referrals even coming from birth to 3 and then in elementary schools rising. And I can only imagine as they progress through elementary, middle school and high school, these special education referrals keep increasing. Knowing the number of students that we have outplaced currently, hoping to reduce that by bringing some in-house, do you have projected numbers of how this would also help mitigate from, if we don't do this project, keeping those numbers, like what, how are we safeguarding, how will this help safeguard those numbers from increasing? Do you have information on that you can share? Cause I can only imagine that's part of the goal of this. Not only to bring students back in-house, but to keep students in-house in district and prevent, the increasing of the outplacement and transportation costs associated with it.
I mean, I would just, before handing it to you, I would say one of the key pieces about developing a program in your community, and it's an option we don't have with this type of student that we're looking at, is a short-term or flexible diagnostic situation so that we don't go from a place where a student really may be dysregulated to an outplacement. We have an opportunity within our community to evaluate, meet the needs of that student, transition that student back, be a little more flexible. We're not malleable like that right now from a program standpoint with this profile of students. So I think that would be the number one kind of, not strategy, but outcome of having your own facility and being able to help to control that overall number. I mean, we will always have students that have certain needs that we won't be able to specialize programs for. But as we've really looked at resource allocation over the last 3 to 5 years and have been really specific with what we've done with some of our programs. Last year, our focus was the ILM program at Squadron Line and at Tooten Hills. We've been more successful with meeting the needs of those students with just better caseloads, better communication, better ability to respond to parents' and students' needs real time. So I think it'll be very helpful on both fronts.
And I'll just add, one of the most proven ways to mitigate out-of-district placements is to increase your in-district programming for those students. So again, as complexities increase, you need to increase your in-district programming in order to ensure that you don't have to send them out. So do we have projections? yes, we've looked at some of those numbers. I think one of the biggest indicators though is our data from Farmington Valley Transition Academy. That is a proven, we have 19 Simsbury students in that program right now that otherwise would need a program outside of their home community. So that is a huge data point that we look at in this model.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanna drill this down. Honestly, I appreciate the urgent need for the program. I don't think that's really a question for us up here. What the question is on the docket tonight, or agenda rather, is this deal about this building, not the program. We urgently need this program, and I just wanna reiterate it because I'm such a proponent of this program. This building and this deal, it isn't such a great deal. You know, yes, you can sell an asset, but if you overpay for an asset, somebody's not gonna buy it from you at an inflated price because you paid an inflated price. Office spaces nationally, but also within our state, continue to come down. As you alluded to, 3 years ago, this property was worth more than it is today. To be quite frank, last year, 20.4% of all office space was vacant for the entire year. That office space price is gonna continue to tumble. It's not malicious, my bringing that up about this building, but it's not gonna appreciate in the short term. It is gonna continue to depreciate. The location to the high school makes it highly desirable, and I totally acknowledge that. But is it enough to offset paying through the nose for the building? Our town assessor has appraised this building with her immense knowledge at $635,000. We paid a private assessor to appraise it at $712,000. We are paying pretty much $1 million. It's $997, I think. That's not a deal. If you look at what they're doing, we're even giving them the conveyance tax to the town. On any real estate transaction, the seller pays a conveyance tax to the municipality. The nuance, one of the nuances I found is we're paying that conveyance tax or forgiving it, but we're still missing out on that additional income. The repairs, Tom, and this is coming to a question, gave us an estimate for repairs at $277,500. The Gerards initially gave us an estimate for those same repairs at $425,000. Same repairs, $277 and $425. Gerard somehow not to use their name, but the seller reduced their estimate to $372,000. Again, still against our $277. Within those, which makes me so insecure on this being a good deal, painting the facility, 2 floors, $88,545. I don't know if you guys have had your house painted, but $88,545 for a 4,000 somewhat square foot structure. We're not dealing with black and white figures that are at market value. There's some fudgery. So I wanna circle all the way back before I ask Tom the question with, I am highly supportive of this program. We need it right away. That being said, I won't just buy something to buy it really quick. Why is your figure 277 compared to their figures, which are either 372 or 425?
Okay, my figures, I'm gonna be honest, are it's a challenge to put together figures on this because we don't have plans. Very frustrating.
You don't have, I'm sorry.
We don't have plans in the building.
yeah.
There is no viable plan for the building. We typically would have something like that in our building department, not in our building department. The owners don't have a viable set of plans. So we're doing everything off of industry averages in square foot. You used the example of painting. I had our facilities manager call one of the painting companies we've used. We said for a 5,000 square foot building, how much to do, an appropriate prime, basic repair, patching, and 2 coats of good quality paint. We came up with a number of probably 20,000, we round up in the business I'm in, 24,000. So that's how I came up with that particular
That's
number.
versus their 88,000.
I will be honest, their number did, and I don't justify bringing it to this next level, it did include removing wallpaper and removing textures on the ceiling. We have no interest in doing that. In talking to Katie, it was sugarcoat the building. It was to make it look nicer, not to make this pristine. It was not to, again, if wallpaper was there, we would probably look at it on a room by room basis.
The other concern, to be honest, point of entry, I think it's mandated by law, isn't it, that you have a monitored entry for students? I mean, we haven't acknowledged that with this building. We don't have a working set of blueprints that you said. It still seems a little gray to have a firm quote to spend $1 million without knowing what comes after the million. We're saying $600K. It's too vague. There's no dollars attributed to it. I honestly think, and I understand where Mark's going, and I give him accolades for trying to work around where we can make it worth the seller's while to do some of the work and give them the money. But the bottom line is, if we're gonna buy this building and figure it out later, meaning the front entry, the lunchroom that nobody still has acknowledged, there's no lunchroom in this building or kitchen, then we wanna just buy the building. We don't wanna buy something that might be part of the way there. So I would turn it back that, I'll be honest, as presented the deal, I don't feel we have a value coming at us here. I would be comfortable even going with the higher of the two appraised numbers, the $712,500, but jumping $300,000 and change to have them paint the place, upgrade the air conditioning, and install gas.
And sprinklers.
And sprinklers, that's good too, because that's the biggest one. That was an oversight on my behalf. But regardless, it is not being frugal. And I don't know the answer, but if we wanna buy it right away, then let's just buy the building and repair it cause we don't know all the phases we're gonna do. It's highly desirable, it's next to the high school, of course it is. But this seems, without having a defined black and white proposal to pay them to do part of a possible proposal, I think we're going too far out. I'm sorry, so I've said my piece. Unless someone wants to rebut that.
Well, that's a question for Mark.
Well, I would like to rebut just a couple of
Yeah.
pieces. So Tom's initial, estimate was what's the lowest end that we could get this stuff done and move quickly? That was earlier in the process. Remember, this thing started back in July. All these months later, as we've evolved, the negotiations with the Gerards have evolved to this sort of a concept. They've had the time to go out and bid some of the things that Tom told them we needed. And I forget which one it was, Tom, but just in my last conversation with them, they had gotten a quote back that was 40 grand higher than they themselves thought. I forget what that was, but
It may have been the gas line. I know there was a lot of back and forth on the gas line.
so, what we do know is that risk works in both ways, Steve, right? So there is some uncertainty here, but there's as much a chance that the uncertainty inures to the benefit of the town as there is that it doesn't. And if you do the math, you keep referring to $1 million, but the building is clearly worth somewhere between 600 and 700. So we're just talking about 300,000. Even if that 300,000 is in the number, you're overpaying, your word not mine, by 1/50th of what our costs are gonna go up if we don't do this. When you're weighing the risk, and your risk is right, I'm not arguing with you. If we overpay for the building, we've spent another $250,000 that we didn't need to spend, which is essentially 70 or 80% of the 372, right? So just doing this in my head, even if I give you all the props I can, the most we're overpaying is $250,000. There's some risk of that. I don't agree that that's happening, but that's the worst case scenario. But over on this side, we're facing sharply increased costs that will add millions of dollars. I was educated on this, and I think I can say that just a couple of the students, Matt, are costing us, can I say how much they're costing us? $1 million. Now, if that's a number that our taxpayers don't know, for those watching on television, that's 2 students costing us $1 million. Is that a year, by the way, or is that every 10 years?
Per year.
For you.
Okay, so That's
That we're required to pay.
we are
We don't have a
required to
choice in
pay
it.
it, right? The state of Connecticut has created this landscape for us. We are a small community, and all we have are our taxpayers and the people in this room that have come up with the best idea they can. There's always gonna be risk. Can I sit here and tell us that we're not overpaying, the building is gonna appreciate, it's gonna be a home run in the bottom of the night? I can't say that. But I can tell you, as your town manager, it's the best possible path forward that I could come up with, Steve. And I'm telling you that with all of my expertise and heart. It's $1 million well spent. And there's no argument about $600,000 or $700,000 of it. And if you wanna just buy the building, you're not gonna have a deal because I could not negotiate a purchase price that you would agree with. And that was why we came up with this structure. You're absolutely right. Because without it, the deal doesn't work.
But have they had another offer in the
No.
2 years it's been on the market?
They have not, but
So
that doesn't
it's
mean.
worth what someone will give you.
But we need it, and they know we need it. How could I possibly negotiate a price for, $600,000? I can't.
Can I weigh in here a little? And I don't
I
want
did
to cut
try,
anybody
Steve.
else off who has questions. So my takeaways on this is there's no deal for just the building. I mean, you've said
We
that a
can't
few
get there.
times, we can't come to that. Can we, as a condition, have a plan that shows exactly the work that they're doing spec'd out?
The problem is it's evolving a little bit, and as prices increase, the best way that we could think of to structure this was an approval from this board and hopefully the Board of Finance that says not to exceed.
But not to exceed, but at least like get Katie and Matt's blessing on what exactly Gerard, or Jeff's blessing, what exactly Gerard's doing for the money, and make sure that it's gonna be enough of what we need. 'Cause I don't know, is that unreasonable to ask for?
I think it's part of the condition of sale, and I know our town
Okay.
attorney is here, and I don't wanna practice law, but I think the condition of sale is that at closing, they're delivering the property to the town in the condition that has been made a part of the contract.
Okay,
Now, our town attorney is gonna work with us to get the contract signed based on your approval tonight. I can't do that on the fly, obviously, but Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. We could put a condition of closing that they present plans for the work, subject to the Board of Ed's approval, and we get more definition as to actually what the work will be. If you approve a not to exceed number and direct the town manager to try to get the best number, and we'll work together on that. We don't have a closing until we're handed a TCO
okay,
as improved. And before they start work, the Board of Ed has gotta sign off on the work they're gonna do. Where's the break room gonna be, where, all the details, cause we don't want them doing it themselves, it's gotta satisfy the needs of the Board of Ed.
Yep.
So, yes,
okay,
very standard condition
Okay.
of closing, that the seller perform certain work on the sale property.
to a standard that we're expecting,
Yes.
okay,
And
and
maybe that, maybe that's a difficult negotiation, maybe not, but if that's the condition of purchase, then it's very valid and very enforceable.
okay, cause it seems like that would please us, you guys, to know that you're getting what you're paying for, we're getting what we are paying for. And then,
I do just, one
Yeah,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
I do think if you act tonight, you do need to give the town manager a not to exceed number, because the next thing is to refer to the Board of Finance, and that's not to exceed number is what will go to public hearing. And that, the public at public hearing is entitled to know what cost is.
okay,
So the not to exceed number would satisfy that requirement.
what is that number, I guess is the question, like,
It's 997-203.25.
I recommend you make it $1 million.
I would too, Bob, thanks for that.
it can, just one more condition on that, can we get from them, the contractor, exactly what they did in the cost, so we know,
Absolutely.
so we have an inventory of what,
We're
where our money was spent, yeah,
So we're entitled to see what the quotes are and who's quoting it, and
okay,
203?
203.
203, okay.
okay.
you're gonna paint the building for $88,000, you gotta
I
tell us.
wanna know why, right?
Sounds like
And Bob, if I can though, if there's savings in one line,
It's way over.
I told them in one of my sessions that was okay if there were. Right, so as long as the million is the million, one line is higher than the other because they haven't gotten bids on everything.
And it could turn up as, a management fee or,
Yeah, cause that's in here, there's a management fee in here. And then the other question that I keep harping on, and you said I could ask is, I just was concerned because if we did the project, we would be subject to state laws on wages, prevailing wage and things like that. If it's done outside, before you said you could just make sure
Yeah.
we're not gonna get hit later that we didn't do
What
something.
I'm looking at is the seller's work. And while this work is being undertaken, it's being undertaken by a private property, it may also be below the threshold for renovation. We're gonna check that.
I remember, no.
Tom and I are gonna double check that and confirm that point, but I can't imagine that CHRO and or
Department of Labor.
Labor can impose the requirement for prevailing wage on a private property.
Yeah, okay, I just,
And it is good to have a solid answer for that.
okay. So with that, I'm gonna ask if there's any other questions and then make a motion.
Question. The price for the lift, so instead of in lieu of the elevator, which is not in any of this cost now, what is the approximate cost for the lift now?
To do all three levels with carpentry would be about $85,000.
85,000?
So the lift goes on the stairs? and
No,
that's
no,
what
no,
goes around?
it's gonna be its own location within the building. And it's essentially a vertical.
Like an elevator,
Very much like
it's
an
just in
elevator.
its own box.
Exactly. In that way, unlike if it was a assisted chairlift, you would not have to maneuver yourself at each level. So you would be able to get from the basement level up top or vice versa.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a motion. What?
She asked if the lift was a pulley. It's been a long night.
We're not done, so.
Depends on the budget.
Think about those commercials I see on cable TV at 2 a.m.
Bob, do you have any more to add?
Mr. Mobility?
No, I've been working with Mark on the contract. Everything that you're asking to be included in that contract is very standard. And I think ideally we would have that contract at least in draft form. But tonight you're authorizing, if this motion passes, you're authorizing the town manager to sign the contract, but it's contingent on Board of Finance approval. So I think that's an appropriate way to do it because having done a lot of real estate over the years, if you want a property, get it under contract. And go
Okay.
from there.
Okay, so it'll be next up at the BOF.
So at the risk of agreeing with Stephen on too many points, I've shared similar concerns and I applaud the analysis on the feasibility of the program itself. And I find myself conflicted because I feel that same sense of urgency, but I have a high level of concern on this building and I just haven't been convinced that that's the right one, and that's the decision that I have to make. Not the decision on whether or not the program is good or that it's the right step for the town, but whether or not this is the right building, at the right time. And whether or not it's the right expenditure for us to make, and if there aren't other feasible alternatives. And I still feel like based on what we've discussed previously, that there are feasible alternatives and that the only a real value, as it's been explained to me, is the proximity to the high school, which doesn't feel convincing enough considering the amount of work that needs to be done there. So that's a significant concern that I continue to have in this overall discussion, is whether or not this is the right building, and that's unfortunately the decision that I have to make.
Got it. Okay,
Maybe just to throw a comment in if I could.
sure.
I hear that everything that all you guys are saying, I would just weigh, to me, the uniqueness of the building, the fact that anything we do is gonna cause customization. And if I go back to Mark's comment on being off by 250,000, it would just adjust the payback period by like a half of a year. So I think putting that context together, I think is important. I get you guys are making a decision on the building right now, so but I think to me, that context is important to make the
If
entire
I could
decision.
ask Art a question on that, so you
Sure.
looked at this and you're smarter on this certainly than me. I worry about the
Giving me a lot of credit, but go ahead.
well, it's pretty certain. The tuition in is a big part of the recovery and the analysis too, and I see population growth and in Simsbury demand for these services, going up as well. What are your thoughts on that part, or how did you take that into your analysis on the cost recovery in the program and whether or not we'd be breaking even in that kind of timeframe if we're not taking in enough tuition paying students into the program?
So that was my comment from earlier,
Yeah,
was
I
like
understand
that is the biggest thing to me. I think there's two things that actually hinge on this, and it's funny because you're voting on the cost of the building. I don't think it's the cost of the building. I think it's if we add too many teachers into the process, like if we add one more teacher, that's an annuity that's gonna have to get paid every year, right, versus $200,000 being off once. Or if the number of students is off. But when we looked at it, it looked conservative to me in terms of our ability to actually fit it. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But it seemed to me that it was pretty conservative, particularly given the responses that we've gotten since we've even talked about it. And just I think what our education system is here. But when you look at the trajectory, as well as our community broadly, it looked like it was conservative.
The toughest part I have is it sounds like almost any building would serve this need, and so then I still feel lost. So if the program works and regardless of the structure or wherever it is, but this is the one that we have to consider, I still come back to why does it have to be this building? Why can't it be something else that requires different work? It looks like a house, it's proximate to the high school, but it doesn't seem to fit any of the requirements of the need except its proximity, and I'm having difficulty getting there.
Matt, can you sell that?
Well, I would just say the one piece on the proximity we haven't talked about, it allows us in that phase one to share staff with the high school in a way that we don't have to transport. I mean, so that's an interesting piece. We had talked about another property that was attractive in a lot of ways, but we'd have to relook at that phase program in terms of the 3-year arc if we didn't have a close proximity where we can basically just walk staff over there because we can share staff between the high school load and the new school load.
So it limits your FTEs because you don't have to front load it so much at the beginning.
And that year one, yeah.
It also is beneficial because of nutrition services. You don't need a cafeteria, but we do need to provide lunches, and so that is a shared resource. And the other thing in regards to it looks like a house, I've been in many of our out of district or approved private special ed programs that are in homes because it does help with that sense of community. These are students that need a smaller relationship bound program that really allows kids to access smaller spaces with smaller groups, and a home-like setting that this offers really allows us to do that programming and provide smaller class sizes.
I hadn't heard that before. Thank you.
Kevin, one other thing I'd add is, and Tom maybe help me out here, but of the other, say, 3 or 4 of the main contender properties, I'm not an engineer, but my takeaway from our earlier discussions about the other properties was that the cost to rehab those was more. A couple of them come to mind, at the South School, or was there another one on Hop Meadow that we looked at?
There was a couple things on Hop Meadow that were again, it was difficult buildings to configure. This building was originally built to be a medical office building. It was not originally built to be a construction office, so they have the ability, walls can be moved, they're not load-bearing walls on the main 2 levels. So it does have some flexibility. The only challenges are the age and the fact that we do need to do some work on the stairs and access ways to make sure it's ADA accessible. But other than that and the security, it's a pretty quick turnaround to get that to be code compliant.
What are the stairs? You mean like railings and surface material, or?
Railings and widths of a couple doorways near the stairs, that kind of thing. We went through with our building official and he pointed out a few items that again, it was not something that we were
It's not the rise and run of the stairs that you have a
It's
problem.
that type of thing to make sure that we're compliant.
Okay.
They can be fixed, but that's not something we wanted to give to the sellers to fix. We wanna go through and make that final determination. But it's just.
Is there any benefit to the land in the back? It goes back by the pond and it connects. I know I used to practice football back there.
Yeah.
But is there any use for that land, or is it just gonna?
There's potentially some benefits long-term in terms of being associated with high school and detention basins and runoff water and some of these long-term issues that have always been back in there. And it's a wet site, not necessarily a big value in terms of buildability. We had also at one point looked whether we could somehow reconfigure the high school access drive to line up with Bushy Hill so that we could actually have, a true traffic light and maybe eliminate the need for a police officer every day. it wasn't viable, but again, it's all part of owning that land next to your building gives you some options.
But it's not really easy to get from the high school. You have to go out on the sidewalk. Is there any idea of making a path?
There could definitely be
Yeah.
Yeah.
a small culvert dropped in there.
Okay, so I'm gonna,
I need one more piece, I'm sorry,
Oh,
just on
sure.
the, sorry to jump in, on the proximity.
yeah, oh
You
yeah,
know, we have a full-time SRO at Simsbury High School.
Yeah.
Close proximity there, security staff, the ability to share there as well, just transitionally as we build this program up. Just another point I wanted.
that's a good point, thank you. Okay, so, and I will say that this has been a hard one for all of us because there's been so many pieces to it and I've been on both sides of the aisle. So I'd like to ask for a motion effective January 13th, 2025 to approve and recommend the proposed purchase of real property known as 2 Farms Village at a maximum of, what did we say, maximum $1 million?
Purchase price not to exceed.
Not at a purchase price not to exceed $1 million as improved. So yes, you got what he said. To the Board of Finance for further consideration with the closing contingencies as outlined and authorize the town manager and town attorney to finalize the purchase and sale agreement, including the closing contingencies as outlined and discussed tonight.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I have to vote no regretfully.
Okay, so it's a,
Myself as well.
okay,
I
that's,
regret, cause I want the program
That's
in
fine.
an urgent manner.
it's a 4-2 vote, so it does pass to the Board of Finance. Now it's on you guys. We'll be at the public hearing. Yes,
So just for members of the public, we'll do a formal presentation from Matt or Mark to explain the program, the needs, and then we'll go through the numbers. We'll invite Bob to attend in case there are questions raised. So it'll be a full, transparent process.
are you saying you're gonna do a better job than we did tonight?
No, we're gonna follow the process of the charter,
guys,
where
yep,
the
yep.
Board of Finance typically does the public hearing, and the public hearing is more formal.
That's
with
great. It gives a
presentations.
little comfort to all of us, I think, knowing that that's coming too. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
We still have to stay. The what?
It's only the 4 hours.
Thank you. Been here since 5.
Some of it should be 30. Oh, shoot.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Alright, so the last item is to approve the recommendations for the Charter Commission. So Bob sent out the corrections he received and we got some late changes and we're not going back through the letters because everyone has had an opportunity to weigh in.
What late changes? Are they different than what's in the packet?
Yes, Steve sent his changes after Bob sent the ones that I had provided. And it's just a couple of small wording changes. It's not printed, so but I asked Bob to confirm that they were accurate and he did.
Yes.
Right? So I will read the changes to the wording.
Thank you.
Okay, alright, great. I'm just gonna highlight the areas. So we're review the number and functions under D, party affiliation and representation of unaffiliated voters was a better wording. That was changed by the guy to my right. And then under A, is that A? What am I? 3A. Sorry, I have it in my notes, it's hard to
I
read.
have the red line here if anybody likes.
Oh, if anybody wants to see it, yeah. I'll read it anyway.
Thanks, Bob.
He
Steve
moved,
wrote it, so he should know what it says.
he moved something down.
Thank you.
Not
Yeah.
often.
Anyway, I won't read it because you're gonna get a copy, so I don't have to waste
No,
my.
there's only one copy.
Oh, so, okay, so under the review the current town form of government, it said in relation to other political potential forms. And then he moved some wording down in A was consider the title and role of the chief elected official. B was consider amending the separate election of the chief elected official to the alternative of appointing the chief elected official by vote by the Board of Selectmen or Town Council. So it's a little clearer. And then now, those are the only changes.
I'll move to approve the Charter Revision Commission recommendations as amended.
Okay,
Second.
I was gonna second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
So I'm gonna take Steve's document, convert it to my own, accept all changes as approved tonight. And and then I'm gonna send it to Franklin for distribution to the Charter Revision Commission with
Okay.
a short cover memo. This is
Yeah, and I had revised the original letter I had saying this was coming. So I don't need to redo that letter, I don't think, cause I included the points
No, I
of
don't think
recording
you-
and stuff.
I mean, they're expecting it to have their first meeting last week, organization meeting, they
Okay.
know it's coming.
Okay, if you need something from me to cover it, let me know. How's that? Alright, so, okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. So we don't necessarily need to go into all the communications items, some of them,
Do you want to
it's,
do the minutes first or?
oh, the
skip
minutes,
over?
yeah, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the December 9th, thank you.
Second.
Although,
Comment.
I didn't do, hold on, I have some changes.
Yeah, some changes too.
okay, I'm
It's
gonna,
been moved, so
Is it moved and seconded?
so now we can have discussion.
yeah, we can discuss because that's the proper order of doing it.
Yes.
Pointing it out.
Oh, it's down there.
Oh, did you
Too
need
long
it
day.
back? Sorry, I was distracted by
I just wanna
Robert's rules.
the right document.
Pam, get to it, Pam.
Okay, yeah, who was, who?
I'll go.
Okay,
Lauren
go.
Curtis can.
Mine's one word. It says that the juvenile review meeting was that night, happened during the day. So just,
Okay, you got that, Tom?
Mhm.
Okay, and Steve?
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Bye,
Bob.
Bob, thanks a lot.
Get home safe.
The second to last paragraph on page 2. The guy's name is Greg Nanni, Nanni. And his business that he is the general manager of is Prospect Enterprises, not Properties. And lastly, in that same section, there is a step that will be completed in June 25, but the actual project will be done in late October. So it says June 2025, that should say late October 2025.
Not gonna argue with that, I don't even know.
Then
Oh, God.
on page 5, to adjourn executive session, I am Mr. Antonio, Miss Antonio is my wife.
That's your daughter, Mrs. Antonio is.
And she wasn't here, exactly.
Oh, and again, it says I didn't say who was going to executive session, so
Well, we
I did
just
a- I
learned
did a
that
bad
in all
one.
fairness.
no, I knew you're supposed to.
Oh, I didn't.
Tom usually reminds me, so that was my
Usually do
bad.
that.
Yeah, we usually do.
Alright,
Alright, so, okay, so with those, where are we? We're in the
you take
discussion.
a vote with those.
All those in
Changes,
favor
yeah.
of, say aye with the changes.
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a request on the publishing of the minutes in the agendas and the packets, even though nobody can find them or read them apparently. Some people do, and I think it would be good to either have a watermark or at the header and the footer just saying draft. Because some people will take these and then find the packets and then regard it as the
Yeah.
official minutes, and we already heard somebody say that they had a concern, so
Yeah.
some of the time.
Yeah, so our town clerk's office has asked that we don't put draft at the top, but when we make an amendment to the agenda, or to the minutes, we refile and put amended at the top.
I'm gonna have to disagree with the clerk. I think that there should be something on this document that says it's not approved. If it's in an official document and it's not approved, it should say somewhere on the document that it's not approved. So if we need to talk with the clerk or get guidance from somebody else, I think it's appropriate, but that's good feedback, Tom.
I'll talk with
If
her.
she's giving you that guidance, I don't wanna go against her, but I kinda do.
Okay.
So do I.
And
So
she has made that for all.
so we didn't get to
Oh, it
vote
should
on
say
the
something.
the law because we missed the 2-hour window. We thought of it at 8:05, so that's out. But the documentation is in here. And then Mark included the capital. I asked Mark to speak to the capital because we're really gonna discuss it at the next meeting. I've asked to have department heads be there to answer questions so we can kind of walk through, make sure that the priorities are needed. I've also mentioned to Mark that the list of capital projects in here really shouldn't say Board of Selectmen consensus because not everybody provided a ranking. It really was the consensus of those that responded.
True.
So it wasn't a true consensus. And then I'm gonna let Mark just give a little color. At this point, it's 9:20, so I don't know if
Yeah, I'll be brief.
here, but
Thanks for that, Wendy. We'll make the change and amend it to remove the consensus but thank you to those that helped us score. Hopefully you see some of the things, if you did score, you see some of the things that you prioritized that made it to the list. Really, the only thing I can add at this point is that it's in your packets as a communication solely, so you've got it a couple weeks in advance. It's significantly the same as what was emailed about 9 or 10 days ago. There were some last minute changes made by staff based on internal conversations that were ongoing about the operating budget. So we can talk about that on the 27th. All of the department heads who have items there to defend will be in attendance at your meeting on the 27th. And they're also eager, if you've got any questions, that you could email us in advance, just so that we don't get caught flat-footed. We'd be happy to do that. And then lastly, those 3 colored lines, I think, have been well explained. The top one being the traditional payback that doesn't get us what we need. The second one being the proposal that has been denied. And the third one, the green one, is roughly equal to what was approved last year in terms of the dollar amount. So as I said earlier, we're sharply lower on CIP and we are flat to last year on CNR. And we are working hard on the operating budget to get it to you on February 10th, which is a couple weeks earlier than in past years. So we're looking forward to that. And that's it.
I have a question.
Yep.
When the department heads are here for budget, are we going, is Amy and Melissa, will they be here and we'll be able to ask questions and they'll real time adjust the numbers as we've done in the past?
Yep.
The levy calc sheet.
Yeah.
I like that sheet. Yeah, me too. And one other thing I noted on here, there was a new ad since we ranked these, so that will be part of the discussion. And an item moved that switched around and taken off, that was another change. And then one of the Station Street got reduced by quite a lot because the other amount of the money was moved to the grants, so it made it possible to stay in here. But yeah, I think at this point, it's not really something we're gonna wanna talk about tonight. Tom's included his process. So I would appreciate if people would read that, because we're not voting on it, but for Kevin's benefit, personnel subcommittee, yeah, we're not voting on it, it doesn't appear. We did include, and I've mentioned it at the DTC meeting, a slight change. A slight change, but I thought you would appreciate, cause you could weigh in, that everybody applying for a board or commission, even though they can go to their party, should fill out that volunteer form, so we have a record of everybody coming through for any board or commission.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay, so that was really the biggest change.
And we're gonna start advertising the first of the month vacancies, whether it's an RD or you, so that way people in the community know that they can volunteer.
Yep.
In the referral process, I think it would be appropriate also to let either the nominating or the process, whatever, know for unaffiliated applicants, to let the party nominating process know as well. So there's an opportunity for some of them, they are unaffiliated and may be unaware that they're unaffiliated, or they may be unaffiliated but willing to affiliate. And so that has previously been a practice, and I don't know if it officially stopped or if it is stopped or anyway, I think that's another good place to close the loop in the flow chart that I had seen.
Yeah, so we've kind of asked for a pretty much step by step and put this out on a website so somebody could look at it and follow along as to what is included.
We also on the website are going to add on appointed commissions, their term limit and when it ends, especially because a lot of them are staggered, so that residents can see, oh, there's a position opening next year.
Right.
Will this be on the new website?
It's gonna be on the old website.
The old one.
Oh, we're gonna attempt on the old one, see if we can do it with the old one.
Seems like they could do it,
Yeah,
you could program that, but
Maybe we'll have the new one sooner.
and then the public gathering permit, you had some really good change comments in here. Are these gonna come to us eventually, like?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, alright, then I'm done. So where's my executive session on here?
It's not.
It's not on here,
It's not on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, so we're
so
done.
we can't do it, we can't add it, it's
I
too
didn't
late.
notice that either.
We were supposed to have our executive session, we talked about it at
Yeah.
agenda prep.
Do you wanna move, is there anything you wanna discuss in open session?
Yeah, I have no
So I
objection.
can't add anything to the agenda now anyway.
No, I didn't know if there's anything about what we're gonna talk about in executive session that's appropriate for
Well,
the open session, just as far as process or
we
whatever.
were gonna talk about the performance management of the town manager.
Yep.
And now we are not going to, so a couple things, the board is asked to start that process because it's a year. Mark, congratulations.
Thank you so much. And Cher, I apologize, I missed it too, but I'm happy to leave. And you're not really adding anything to the agenda.
No, we're not gonna get personal, we can't
Yeah, it has to be
talk
gavel to
about-
gavel.
Or you could talk about me while I'm here.
No, we could go to the maple tree or whatever. So what we.
I think that's allowed.
I just wanna say, Tom gave us a copy of the performance management tool that we've been using since I've been here. Both Heather and I, over the last couple years, and we're trying to find a better process, a real performance management tool, which HR is actually working on, but it's not gonna meet our timeline if we wanna do something by March, is kind of where I was targeting. So I've given everybody has a copy of that first one, so I guess helpful would be to look that over, see what you think of it, because there are some changes that we recognize that could be made to that to make it a little bit more granular and easier to mark on the document. How's that for us? And then
That's great.
we'll just have to do it next month.
Is it possible to get a digital copy of this?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
Yes.
emailed to us.
Oh, it was?
But when we fill it out, we always fill it out digitally.
Yeah, it's a survey, it's,
So-
yeah, go ahead.
So that's a Word version of it.
No, you didn't.
In the past, it's been done on SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
To which I recently learned that we used to have the free version, we didn't pay for it. But with the free version now, I can't export at all.
Oh,
I have to
results.
pay to like export the thing to a PDF to
Money
send
off
to you.
everything.
We told them to
So it's
just
no longer
get a
really
trial.
free. So if you would like to kind of move forward with that, we can try and find.
So let's look this over and see what kind of things that we would like to include. We can always edit this if we want, cause it was a homegrown tool by one of the prior board selectmen. And I guess I feel kind of bad we can't have executive session, but I'm kind of happy that I can go home at 9:30.
So
We're not gonna-
do we want, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we wanna wait until this meeting on the 27th, or do you, are others interested in having a
Talking about this
conversation?
now?
Well, in and scheduling another.
Oh, a special executive session.
Right.
Yeah,
because that was-
we could look into that.
That was my question, is this going to be on the 27th agenda or is it going to be on a different agenda?
In fairness to Mark, I think we
Yeah.
should give him the right time for all of us to
Correct.
consider and talk through this process. And
Okay.
not necessarily try to rush it or be exhausted by the end of another long meeting.
Right.
On the 27th, when we're
Correct.
talking about it.
So we could try to do something next week.
Okay, that'd be great.
Well, what's today? Today's only Monday.
Today's Monday.
I thought it was Friday.
I'll be out of town over the weekend just for hockey
Well,
tournament.
Monday's a
but-
holiday anyway.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
so
Yeah.
otherwise I could find a time during the
Oh, later this week you're saying or next week?
later this week or next week.
You can also do a special meeting via Zoom and then
Yeah, Zoom would be
staff
good.
could also then just leave the Zoom meeting
Okay,
while you guys are in there.
alright. Tell me when you wanna do it. So you guys, somebody tell me at some point what you're thinking when you wanna do it.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll circle back
not
after this
now, I'm
meeting
too
and get
tired.
help with scheduling it since we're not, so that we're not having a meeting about having a meeting.
Alright, so.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings, and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions, and it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
Continues to educate our youth, and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
Your schools,
and your government come together.